Hey, if you're new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean a lot to me, and honestly, it'd make my day. If you already did, thank you so much. Oh, and by the way, if you like listening to fan fiction, check out my other channel. The link's in the description.
Once again by Double M7. Lady Toki grants Luffy one last chance to correct his mistakes. Luffy was sent 12 years into the past in order to relive his life. Though there was a catch, he retains his 19-year-old mind and body. How will he change the world? For the better. Adios.
The smell of death covered the air. Blood, gore, carnage. This was not how it was supposed to be. Everything was on fire, his crew was scattered, possibly dead. His armada was demolished with the combined force of the two Yonko of the sea. All your effort, and yet you still find yourself here. You have been defeated, Mugiwara. Kaido, Emperor of the New World, strongest beast in the planet, and basically the hand behind Wano Kingdom, stood before Straw Hat Luffy, smirking at his victory. Not yet, Monkey D. Luffy, who was dubbed the fourth Emperor of the Sea, lay flat on his face. Unable to move from the devastating Kanabo blow delivered by Kaido. My Nakama will, though in his effort to feel the presence of his friends, there was none, as if they were, no. They can't do anything for your Mugiwara. Kaido began. Realization encompassed Luffy at the weight of Kaido's words. They're all dead. The beast's words echoed through his mind. Monkey D. Luffy has never tasted true defeat before. This was it. This feels like shit. He spat out blood as he attempted to push himself up. No luck. Every inch of his body was ridden with pain. Then there was also the horrible realization that his friends were no longer of this world. Doubt filled his mind, his observation haki confirming his worst fear. Was the beast lying? No, he confirmed it himself. Did he have a choice in the matter? Not even the slightest. Will he die fighting? Till death. There was no other way. Flashes of his life engulfed him. Zoro, Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Brook, Jinbei, Yamato. All of his adventures led him to this. Dying at the hands of Kaido. Some luck, if only he could have an opportunity to do everything all over again. Kaido's Kanabo was mere inches from connecting with his skull. He was seconds from dying, and yet all he could think about is regret. His fist connected with the beast as a last-ditch effort, but the funny thing was, the mace did not connect with him. A cloud of smoke enveloped Luffy as his body suddenly transported to another location, several hundred yards away from his battle with Kaido. In his place, a rock was substituted, receiving what would have been a fatal blow to the skull of Luffy. The rock shattered into a million pieces as the beast was flabbergasted at the event before him. Mugiwara ya, this is no place to die for you. One of his fierce rival, ally, and most importantly, a friend, stated. He did not look like the calm, calculating man who Luffy was used to teasing. Trafalgar D. Waterlaw was bloody, beaten and gasping for air. Someone wants to talk to you. Before he could speak, ask a question, or even think about what was happening, once again, Luffy had been teleported away from the battlefield and into a secluded room. In his wake, the former warlord had to manage, even for just a second, to hold the dragon before following the Straw Hat Pirate. But that was it, for 2 seconds he managed, and then, Trafalgar D. Law disappeared from the world. At an undisclosed location in Wano. His ears rang as the immediate transportation by Law was nauseating. He felt his body tense as he could tell that a powerful person was with him in the tiny room. Hello, Monkey D. Luffy. Do not be alarmed, for I am an ally. A woman in her mid-40s sat before him, wearing a kimono embroidered with golden flowers. Her hair was long, streaked with white color signifying her age. She had a gentle smile on her face, almost calming. Who are you? The first words that Luffy managed to muster as the crazy sequence of events was still being processed through his mind. My name is Kazuki Toki, and I possess the time fruit. She took a moment for the Straw Hat to situate himself. I'm sure you have many questions, but I only have so much time. Luffy, you are a very important figure in this world and we can't lose you today. In the event that you die, we lose the end war. She noticed the confused look on the man's face but held her hand up to stop him. Again, time is in essence, Luffy. I have sent my son and Odin's scabbard 20 years into the future. And now I sent myself forward where the flame burns at its lowest, to assist you as my last will. Monkey D. Luffy, I, Kazuki Toki, will send you to the past where you deem your love for the open sea began. Suddenly the earth trembled and the roof of the little room was ripped right off by a giant dragon. Kaido floated in the air in his dragon form, circling the room in which the duo resided. Goodbye Luffy. Make good of your chance, was the last word from Lady Toki as Luffy found himself engulfed in white smoke. He could not even ask any questions, he could not even comprehend what just happened. As dragonfire rained down on the room, only one person suffered the ultimate price at the hands of Kaido that day, and it was not Luffy. The young man traveled through a tunnel, rewinding his life. Throughout the literal drive through memory lane, Lady Toki's voice echoed, "Where you deem your love for the open sea began." What the hell does that mean? He continued to go through his memories, then suddenly everything stopped. Where did his love for the open sea began? He had so many questions in his mind it felt as if it could explode. Where are his friends? Why did she help him? What is this flame she is referring to? When did he fall in love with the sea? Then a flash of light swallowed him, when he fell in love with the sea. Nagumi held a young boy in his hands, prepared to launch him into the open sea. The young man had recently eaten a devil fruit, rendering him incapable of swimming in the sea. "This is for embarrassing me, you little shit." Right before the young man was going to be launched at the sea, a strong gust of wind engulfed the young boy and in his place, a 19-year-old man took his place. This man wore a red vest, with khaki brown shorts. His chest had a noticeable cross-shaped scar embedded in his skin. "I still don't understand what the fuck is going on, but who the hell do you think you are?" The 19-year-old man punched the poor mountain bandit into the horizon, launching him far, far away. "What have you done with Luffy?" A menacing glacé pierced the very fabric of the new arrival, and yet he was not fazed, not even one bit. For his immense training and experience throughout his young life prepared him for even the best of the best. This man was a figure who he looked up to all of his life. His signature red hair gleamed with the sunlight. A sea king jump on the ocean, when the young man was going to be tossed. This was when the red-haired man was supposed to give up his arm in order to inspire the young man. "I haven't done anything to him." It was that moment that the man understood what Lady Toki was telling him. He was given a second chance to save the world. He was sent back in time in order to correct his mistakes. Though this time with the body and experience of his future self. "I am Luffy." "Like hell I believe you." The red-haired man disappeared into a red streak, flashing before the time traveler. He brought his sword down on him, intending to sever his right arm from his body. Though his sword met an ever so familiar black armor-like skin, covering the young man's body. "Hockey?" The Luffy stretched his legs to create some distance with the future Yonko. "Interesting, I kept my rubber fruit?" "Hi Shanks, I barely understand it myself. But I am Luffy, and I am from the future." Luffy was so calm and collected. It was so unlike him. A complete contrast, the loud-mouthed little man from not too long ago. "Interesting." Shanks lowered his weapon and began to caress his chin, thinking, "Care to tell me where you came from exactly?" "Well, I'm from 12 years into the future, and I was fighting Kaido. I was losing and a Lady Toki sent me into the past to correct my mistakes." Luffy began to retell his story, but Shanks could not pick up the rest as only the beginning of his story was good enough for him. Shanks knew of a Kaido, the beast. He knew of Lady Toki who he sailed with during his tea ship. He also knew of her ability to traverse time with her devil fruit. Okay, I understand. So what's your plan then?" "I need to gather a strong crew. And then an armada. During my time, the one I gathered was not strong enough to defeat Big Mom and Kaido's entire force." Shanks decided to entertain the notion suggested by the young man. Say he was a time traveler, and he was from 12 years into the future where Kaido wins. Then he would have his work cut out for him. "Where will you go then?" "I need to go to Whole Cake Island. My strongest opponent will be my strongest ally." In his mind, he already mapped out his crew and allies and even a plan for his original crew. Now it's a manner of swaying them into his cause. If only it will be that easy. In time. Still surreal to me, Luffy. 1 second you were a little squirt and now you are a full-on adult. At a distance, Higumi the bear screamed in agony as the Sea King took one big bite off of the mountain bandit. Then it was silence. It's my second chance, Shanks. I have to save everyone. The look of determination was something Shanks could not deny. Only Luffy would give off a look like that. Add to the fact that the young man had brought in his experience and knowledge from the future. Lady Toki must have seen no other way to survive. Oden, Toki. If this is the only way, I have to make sure this boy wins. Shanks looked onto the young man, lost in his own thoughts. They stood, Shanks and a 19-year-old Luffy, at the edge of the island known as Dawn Island in the Goa Kingdom. One man envisioning his plan for the future, while the other skeptic yet determined. At first he was very calm, collected, and his body knew what to do. But now that he began to get acclimated within the timeline, his eyes began to well up. All of his friends were alive, but more importantly, Ace did not have a massive hole through his chest. His brother wasn't dead. "Are you okay, Luffy?" Shanks touched him on his shoulder, attempting to calm the young man. Luffy shook off the thoughts from his mind. He had things he needed to handle. He needed a ride to Whole Cake Island. "Yeah, don't worry about me. Anyway, Shanks, by chance is Red Force coated in sea stone?" Shanks still had his overwhelming aura despite being 12 years younger. He was still a physical specimen, though obviously now he would have both arms. His face did have the claw marks from Blackbeard. Unfortunately, that still happened. How does he know all these information? Shanks never told him this? Was he granted some sort of all-seeing knowledge? It is partly coated. Sea stone is hard to come by, not to mention expensive. Why, what do you have in mind? The red-haired pirate asked. Earlier he was more hesitant to even listen to the young man, but now he was intrigued at where this will go. The time-traveling pirate. In his travels with the Roger Pirates, he met Lady Toki and he learned of her time fruit. Although at the time, she could not really control her ability really well. She probably gained a better grasp of her ability in the future, thus sending Luffy in the past. If what the young pirate says is true, then Luffy really is an important person for the end war. Whenever that would be. So instinctively, he was more inclined to help the young man. He just has a good feeling about it. "I need to get to Toto Land. I have to get someone. You can just drop me off and I'll find a way out." The last time he entered Toto Land, he could barely make his way out. Though this time, he had a little bit more experience, and he was better prepared for Big Mom, especially her sweet commander. Can he do it himself? More than likely no. But his goal is quite simple. Go in, retrieve his strongest ally, get out. Will he join his cause? Again, maybe not. Will he still try? Hell yeah. That's Charlotte Linlin's territory, Luffy. Do you know how dangerous this will be? Shanks knew of her monstrous strength as she was a notable member of the Rocks Pirates. A rival pirate crew that almost reached Laughtail before the Roger Pirates. "Yeah, I know, but I need to get this person, and well, a handful of others, in order to make sure that I win this time around." The man he sought after in Toto Land was a strong individual who pushed him to his limits. A very powerful enemy, though more importantly, a very strong ally when the time comes. Fine, but we would need to pass through a couple of locations. We need to go through the Calm Belt first and foremost. Then I would need to restock in Sabaody, get coated, then we need to pass through Fishman Island. Then once we pass through the Red Line, we would then need to exit through the Calm Belt once more and enter the South Blue before finally reaching Toto Land through the Calm Belt. Why should I help you? This seems more like a headache than a benefit to me. In that moment Luffy knew he would have to give the red-haired pirate a little bit of future knowledge in order to gain passage through his ship. Fine. That will work. Hopefully some people joins me along the way. Luffy pointed at his left arm, which remained intact. You would have lost your arm today as you wanted to inspire young me to become more than just a pirate, but a good man who is willing to sacrifice himself for others. And also you've met him already, but you will surely clash with him once more. He is the future wielder of the dark fruit. Be wary and do not underestimate him, he will. Before he could continue, Shanks held up both arms signaling for him to stop. He had an idea of who Luffy was referring to, the man who never sleeps. Alright enough, you freaky bastard. I get it, but I would not want to know what the future has in store for me, so I will bring you to Toto Land, but you're on your own after that. Shanks considered helping him escape as well. But if he really is the promised child as he believed him to be, then he won't die in Big Mom's land. If he dies, then he was not the man he believed him to be. Sounds like a plan. When do we sail? Luffy had his signature grin plastered across his face. This reminded Shanks of Gold D. Roger, bringing a smile on his face as well. He dipped his head ever so slightly and grabbed the straw hat from his head. 2 weeks, I have some business here, and also I was going to give you this hat before we set sail. But I have a feeling you already knew that. Shanks placed the hat on Luffy's head, causing tears to flow from Luffy. Thank you. In 2 weeks it is. With that, Luffy took off, wiping the tears off of his face. Being a lot older, the significance of receiving the straw hat from Shanks made him tremble in excitement. I have 2 weeks to handle my business here then. In this time period, Luffy hasn't met Ace and Sabo yet, so they will not know who he was. He had a plan on how they could meet, he just had to wait a little bit. He also wondered if his father and grandpa will show up sometime in the next 2 weeks. He knew that they are keeping a tab on him. They are bound to learn of his sudden growth. Day 1, a young man wore a blue overcoat along with a white scarf. He was missing a tooth and he smiled at the person beside him. He had a top hat with hexagon-shaped goggles and his weapon of choice was a metal pipe. Beside him was a young man the same age as him. He wore a yellow tank top and shorts. He had jet black hair along with freckles on his cheeks. These 2 young men were Sabo and Ace, in the process of stealing some money from rich aristocrats. Luffy observed them in the distance as his heart was going to skip from his chest. His brother, Ace, was alive and kicking ass. A single tear escaped his right eye as the realization that his brother was still alive finally set in. This time, in the week that he has before going to Dodo Land, he will train the 2 young men as much as he could. They need to be ready for the future, and he was going to give them a head start. An explosion rang in the air at the building in which the 2 young boys entered. Then a series of sirens echoed in the air as the boys began to run. Jewelry flew from their hands. They were being chased by 4 adult males. Just a couple of hired muscle, no big deal. Luffy kept his distance, they were cornered at an alley, no way to escape. The 4 muscular men smirked to themselves at catching the duo. You little rats, give everything back and we won't beat you up, said one of the thugs. Luffy had enhanced his hearing through observation haki and managed to hone in on the conversation from the distance. Ace and Sabo looked scared and yet they did not waver in their resolve. Eat ass. Ace tossed a handful of sand at the 4 men, managing to temporarily blind 3 of them. Sabo took this opportunity to slide under of the men who was not blinded and used his metal pipe to slam the living daylight out of his nether region. Gah! The thug yelled in a gut-wrenching pain. Even Luffy couldn't help but grasp his balls at the pain that the thug must be enduring. Ace and Sabo took this little window of opportunity to slip past the 4 thugs, though yet again they were stopped in their tracks. 16 other thugs surrounded the duo as the man they stole from was a very rich individual. Okay, time for me to step in then. Luffy disappeared from the spot he was standing on, leaving only a whirlwind of leaves. Within a blink of the eye, Luffy appeared before the 20 total thugs surrounding his brothers. Didn't your parents ever teach you not to pick on little kids? Punch first, ask questions later. Typical thugs, as the biggest one of the men attempted to punch him in the face. He decided to take the punch to prove a point. He soaked his forehead in armament haki just to take things a step. Farugs laughed as the biggest of the group was able to land a clean hit. Though their smile quickly disappeared as the giant thug now had a limp right hand. His hand connected with the solid black armor haki that covered the forehead of the Straw Hat Pirate. She, big idiot. Ace and Sabo took a step back as the sudden arrival of the stranger marked the end of the 20 thugs chasing after them. The duo was frozen in place at the display of fighting prowess of the Straw Hat Man. Luffy decided to show off a little, not using any more haki, or his devil fruit ability. That wouldn't be fair. The giant thug fell over grasping his broken right hand, signaling for the rest of the thugs to gang up on him. The closest to him received a foot to the face, effectively knocking him out. Any more takers? The rest of the thugs took out knives, causing Luffy to chuckle. I guess no one is backing down. He already decided he was not going to use haki or his devil fruit, so all he had was the good old-fashioned natural fighting ability that he possessed. 2 out of the 20 remaining thugs were out of the equation. We outnumber you, punk kid, 18-1, exclaimed one of the thugs. Luffy smirked, causing a chill to run down everyone's back. I like those odds. Then it began. What would go down as the demasculinization of the thug population went down that day. For all 20 of the thugs were manhandled by a teenager. A teenager with a straw hat. Before any more trouble could arise, Luffy waved for the duo to follow him. In which they obliged, though with a questioning look on their face. Once they were deep in the mountain, Ace finally spoke up, pointing his wooden pole at the man who just defeated their captors. "Are you some kind of pervert?" was his first question, causing Luffy to fall face first at such a ridiculous accusation. "What the hell, you think I'm a pervert? Hell no," exclaimed Luffy. "Yeah? Getting all defensive. Definitely a pervert," said Sabo as he joined Ace in pointing his metal pipe at the man with the straw hat. Young Sabo and young Ace were both trying to look menacing, but they were so little it made him chuckle. "Alright you little shits, I am not a pervert." He then continued to punch the head of both young men, causing them to develop a giant lump on their head. He began to laugh as Ace used to do the same thing to him back in his timeline. "Then why did you help us?" Ace exclaimed as he rubbed the area where Luffy caused a giant lump to form. "Well you see, I am actually a very strong person and I took an interest in your fighting spirit. So I decided to train you to be stronger." Luffy half-assed his explanation. He really needed them to get stronger. So that they could survive the coming future. So that Ace won't die. "Yeah right you damn pervert," Sabo exclaimed, causing Luffy to punch him on the head once more. "Alright you twerps, if you don't want to learn from me then fine, I'll go and train some other people who want to get stronger," Luffy began to exclaim comically. "We need to think about it first. For all we know you could be a serial killer," replied Sabo. "Yeah, a creepy perverted serial killer," added Ace, who crossed his arms. "Fair point," said Luffy as he caressed his chin. "Okay then do what you want to and remember I am here to help." He gave them a warm smile. And with that the duo made their way back to their sleeping quarters. Away from the strange man with the straw hat. Well at least they're not as dumb as I remember. Good on them for not trusting a stranger. With that, Luffy jumped on a tree branch and decided to rest for the day. He was going to wait for the duo's answer. He closed his eyes and began to drift into sleep, though something particular caught his ear, several miles away at a local pub. The sound of mindless chatter filled the room. He could tell it was a pub due to the content of the room and the white noises around it. There he found the familiar voices of several of the thugs he beat up earlier that day. In the tavern, goddamn monster. I swear we had him. Embarrassing if you ask me. There were 20 of the strongest people in this island. That man is no human. He was a monster. This particular statement caused a smile to form in the face of the time traveler. Though his smile disappeared as he sensed a man approaching the group. A monster you say? Where is he? The man carried a powerful presence about him. Despite the distance, Luffy could tell he was strong, very strong. Draw. Draw. The men began to tremble at the sight of the new arrival. Luffy could feel their fear. The name of the man. Who is he? He went up the mountain. The last time we saw him, said one of the thug, stuttering from fear. Luffy suddenly shot up as the powerful presence began heading in his general direction. Then a troubling news reached his ears as those thugs finally revealed who the man was. That was Dracul Mihawk, the closest to being the world's strongest swordsman. What is he doing in the East Blue? Just our luck meeting a bunch of monsters. Fuck, exclaimed Luffy in the air, for Dracul Mihawk was heading towards him. What should he do? This man was so strong that he would duel with Shanks to a standstill. This man was possibly the strongest warlord of all time. This was probably the business Shanks spoke of yesterday. Though he was 12 years younger, which means less experience. Wait a minute, maybe just maybe, right? Though he would have his answer soon enough as before him, Mihawk held his arm up, pointing Yuru, his infamous giant black blade, at Monkey D. Luffy. Are you the monster they speak of? Said the swordsman, though his hawk-like gaze was observing every inch of his body. I've been here one day and I caused this much trouble. Geez, Luffy began to think of a way to get out of this mess. Too bad he can't think of anything. No, I am not the guy you are looking for. He went that way. Luffy pointed behind Mihawk, although this only caused a smirk to form from the man before him. Luffy had to suddenly bring his arm up to protect his face. His entire arm was covered in haki. Mihawk had charged him, closing the distance between the two. Yes, you are definitely the monster they speak of. With that, Mihawk jumped backwards, sizing up the Straw Hat Man before him. That hat belongs to a rival of mine. Why do you possess it? This, Luffy pointed at his hat, smirking at the future world's greatest swordsman. Shanks gave this to me. Is that so? Another smirk escaped the swordsman. Then you are a worthy opponent. Mihawk once again charged at Luffy, though this time, he jumped up. Gomu Gomu no Jet Stamp. With Mihawk being below him, Luffy used his stamp to flatten the swordsman on the ground, surprising him. Blood escaped the mouth of the swordsman as he quickly got up. Luffy did a backflip to create some distance between them. Mihawk wiped the blood from his mouth and continued to smile. Mihawk sliced his blade horizontally, aiming at the man before him. Energy formed from the tip of his blade, traveling towards him. Luffy decided that men like these will not listen to diplomacy, so he would have to use his fist to drill some lessons toward the swordsman. Alright, you asked for it. Luffy's body was covered in steam, turning a light shade of red. Then his movement began to escalate. In all his years of fighting, Mihawk has never seen this power before. Your name, warrior, Mihawk said as he began to swing his blade in Luffy's general direction. PSH. I am no warrior, exclaimed Luffy. His childhood dream was still a motivating factor for him. Listen well, my name is Monkey D. Luffy. I will be the Pirate King. Yeah, and he would have died in the future if it wasn't for outside interference. How strong is his resolve if he died? Right, and I will be the world's greatest swordsman. Mihawk joined in what he thought was a jab at ridiculous claims. Alright, I will be the Pirate King then, because you can be. This caused Mihawk to stop slightly, giving Luffy just enough opened hook. This caught both fighters off guard, as Luffy did not expect to connect while Mihawk did not expect to be hit. I apologize, Mugiwara. It's just nobody has believed in me before. Well, I chose the isolation life and it was just strange to hear a compliment. The fierce fighter was taken aback by something he was unfamiliar with his whole life. Shut your face, Mihawk, you being sentimental is kinda creepy, exclaimed Luffy, although he meant it more as a jest rather than to offend the man. This caused a smirk to form in the face of the swordsman. You are correct, therefore I must regain my dignity by ending your life today. Luffy shivered at the statement by the swordsman, although he had a slight smirk on his face. Mihawk was joking? Throughout the rest of the night, Luffy and Mihawk dueled, not one gaining an edge over the other. Luffy had yet to use anything other than Gear 2 and Mihawk was using the dull edge of Yuru. It was that evening that the two fighters gained mutual respect for one another. Day 2, the sun rose on the horizon and two young men arrived at the scene. Sabo and Ace had their mouth open as they arrived at the battle's finale. They were going to tell the Straw Hat Man, no thanks, but that battle that they witnessed completely opened their eyes on the prospect of learning from the Straw Hat Man. How about we call it a day, Mihawk? It's dawn already and I got to train some squirts. Luffy was panting as he was pushed like never before in a spar. Note that this was just a spar, not life or death. If he counted those, then Kaido would be on the very top in all-time life or death battle. I suppose. Wool Mugiwara. This was a good battle. I will go on my business and battle Red Hair in this remote island. Farewell then. Mihawk placed Yuru on his back, while Luffy finally had time to breathe. The two men approached each other and shook hands. Mihawk, I am traveling to the New World in order to get a strong ally. Will you join me in my journey? Luffy had to throw a curveball. Maybe the man will accept. Interesting proposition, though for now, I will have to decline. I don't do well with a team. Mihawk began walking away, though stopped mid-stride. Although there may be a first for everything. With a wave of his hands, Mihawk disappeared in the distance. So cool. Teach us. Sabo and Ace had stars in their eyes as they were practically begging Luffy. Luffy decided to have some fun with it. Bayou kids took too long, I found another to train. What? No, exclaimed Sabo. Boss Wheel trained 10 times harder than your new apprentice, said Ace as he flexed his tiny arm. Yeah, I will work 100 times more than Ace boss, retorted Sabo, who tried to one-up Ace. Oh yeah? Well, I will work 1,000 times more than you. Then a fistfight ensued between the two friends, causing Luffy to bawl out laughing. How he wished he could be a child again and join in on such childish squabbles. I don't know. You said some hurtful things about me. Luffy let out some fake tears. No boss, we were just joking. See, you are not a serial killer, exclaimed Ace. Yeah boss, here, a token of our intentions. Sabo had pulled a golden beetle from his back pocket, the hardest bug to catch in all of the island. Alright fine, I will train you both, but there's a catch. I only have a week, and if you slack off, you will die, got it? Yeah boss, exclaimed the duo. Alright then, first training exercise. Pick up that rock. Luffy pointed at a rock 2 times the size of the young me. Ace and Sabo did as he said, and their little legs began to tremble. Easy, now what? Said Ace in a shaky voice. Oh, that's not it. Run around this entire island until the sun sets. What the hell? That's not possible, complained Sabo, although Ace was already on his way. Ace, wait for me, exclaimed the young lord. She, now I can take a nap. With that, Luffy closed his eyes, napping for only a second, the boys going on their way to do as Luffy says. Though despite his claims to take a nap, Luffy had been thinking of many things since his return. Sure, he wants to go after strong people and recruit them, but he also wants to make life better for others. He contemplated going after the king of the Goa Kingdom. By cutting off the head of the snake, will life be better for others? If he were to go after the king, who will fill the void? No sense of dwelling on that for now. While the kids were hauling the rocks all around the island, Luffy decided to visit his former mother figure. Mountain, freakin' children, clean up after yourself, damn it. Curly Dayton was a big woman, taller than most, but her heart was in the right place. She had been looking after Ace and Sabo in the time that they have been lost. She gave them a home when no one else would, and dare she say, care about them like her own children. Suddenly, Dayton felt a strong presence outside of her home. She quickly picked up her axe and slowly made her way to the door. Hello, is Dayton home? The voice called out from the other side, though she was still cautious at this new arrival. What's it to you? Asked Dayton, mere inches from the door, axe ready to strike. Just wanted to talk. Alright, so talk. She did not open the door yet. Can I see the person I'm talking to? The voice called out from the other side. Dayton felt that the person could come in at any time, so decided to open the door. Who she saw was a young man, around his 20s. He wore a familiar straw hat, one that belonged to the ruffian pirate named Shanks. So then, talk. Dayton flashed her axe threateningly. I wanted to meet the infamous mountain bandit, since you know, Higuma the bear was messing with me earlier. Old coworker, haven't worked with him since he was, well, a bad person. Who are you anyway? Monkey D. Luffy is the name. Pleasure to finally meet the person who raised both Ace and Sabo. They kinda became my apprentices. Luffy laughed at the irony and Dayton became less tense at the stranger. Well, come on in then. You Garp's child or something? Of course Dayton knew the old fart. Grandson. To this Dayton smiled. Then you're pretty much family boy. She gave an embrace to the young man. Luffy did not know how much he missed a loving embrace, especially from his mother figure. He let out a single tear before wiping it quickly when she separated from him. Well then, I just wanted to drop in and introduce myself since the boys will be under my tutelage for some time. Just so you're not worried where they are. I could care less, Dayton proclaimed, but Luffy knew otherwise. Hey, quick question, in all of Goa Kingdom, who would you trust in running this country? Dayton had a morale compass of someone with a pure heart, no other person to ask than her. Good question, kid. If it were up to me. First got to get rid of that evil bastard of a father of Sabo running this place. And well, I simply don't have the answer on who can replace him. But if you ask enough people and enough of them say one name, then that's probably the person that will best represent the country. Don't you think? Dayton said, which gave him an idea. That's it. Thank you, Dayton. Voting for the person to rule the Goa Kingdom should be the way to go. Take care of yourself, Luffy. You too, Docks, Red Force. Shanks had been mapping out their possible escape routes, in case the CP0 try anything. Shanks and his crew had forcefully taken the gum-gum fruit from a transport vessel before it could reach its destination. Just as he was in deep thoughts, he wondered if having Luffy here at this time would stop the prophecy from happening, if being behind in time would cause everything to change for the worse. He needed to come up with a failsafe. He couldn't let anything happen to Luffy, the supposed savior of the world. Crazy to think that he was just a squirt before the time travel shenanigans. Red hair. Dracule Mihawk has found Shanks. Care to spar? Seems like you had a spar already? Shanks noticed a bit of scuff mark all over the swordsman. Yes, I met On, who carried your precious hat. He is interesting. So then, ready to let off some steam? Shanks pulled out his blade, Griffin. Always. With Mihawk retrieving Yuru, the duo exchanged swords, smiling as they seemingly danced. An interesting thing happened while conversing with the boy. Mihawk stated simply mid-swain. Oh yeah? Let me guess, he asked you to join him, didn't he? Shanks had an idea what Luffy wanted to do. Yes, what do you think of this? I've never worked well with others. I'd be offended since you never joined me when I invited you, Shanks joked, to which Mihawk returned with a powerful slice. But in all seriousness, he is a good kid with big plans. It's really up to you. It was then that Mihawk got a score by merely being inches from Shanks' neck, 1-0. You cheated. Goa Kingdom. Royal Palace. The king of Goa laid peacefully on his bed, a group of women surrounding him. They were there out of force, not because they wanted to be there. He sat up, feeling a chilling feeling course through his back. Around him, the women began to scatter, running out of the room. There was a monster on his window. It wore a demon face and covered in all black attire. It tilted its head, releasing a menacing aura about him. Guards! Guards! Yelled the king, and sure enough, a couple of well-armored guards rushed the demon. Though none of the 15 guards could get close to the man, falling flat on their face before reaching it. At this point, the king of Goa trembled in fear. All of his life, he lived comfortably in his lavish kingdom, tossing the troubles of commoners to the side to feed his insatiable thirst for power. What do you want? The king asked, to which the demon jumped from the window, walking past the unconscious guards until he stood over the mortified king. Step down from being a king, have the people decide who will lead them. His voice was deep and deadly, to which the king nodded furiously. If you try anything, I'll kill you. And just as the demon spirit was there, it was gone. The king of Goa will not defy the spirit, choosing instead to step down from his power, sending out a formal retirement to the world government and holding an open election to represent the kingdom of Goa. The new king of Goa will hopefully be more progressive in helping the poor, the unlucky, and grow the country of Goa to more than just a backwater island of the East Blue. The news of the king retiring from the Goa kingdom spread like wildfire, and in Luffy's walk back to his spot, he found the mayor of town, reading over the newspaper. You should run for king, whoop-slap. A passing young man commented towards the mayor of Fuchsia village. This caused Whoopslap to think about the implication. You know what, Luffy, I think I will. About time someone smart and sensible leads this country. Whoopslap mused, not even noticing the sudden growth of the Straw Hat Man. Luffy headed back to his hammock, laying back down to take a quick nap before the two kids arrive. It had been a long day indeed. Day 3. Makino's bar. Shanks, what is Buggy up to these days? Luffy visited Shanks at the local tavern, the look of shock covering Makino's face at Luffy's sudden growth. Growth spurt, sis. Luffy commented toward Makino, who went to the back to wash water over her face. She must be seeing things, or losing it. He's at some island out east. Wallowing in self-pity. At least I think so, Shanks stated simply. Keeping tabs on your old buddy. He is my first friend after all, Shanks responded. Then they just dropped it. Luffy bid farewell to the red-haired pirates as he had somewhere he needed to be. Mountaintop. Luffy then headed to his spot, where the two kids were waiting patiently for their teacher. On the third day of training the two kids, Luffy trained their mind and body. He instructed them to sit under a waterfall and hold out their hands while carrying 2 heavy pots. For the next 2 days, I want you to train your bodies enough that you can take a punch from me, don't slack off. Yes, boss, yelled Ace and Sabo. While they were busy doing that, he decided to pay a local fisherman to bring him over to a nearby island. He had a certain clown he's been meaning to visit. If the info he got from Shanks was correct, the pirate clown was hiding out at a small eastern island's tavern, drinking his life and potential away. Somewhere east, so Luffy set sail along a fisherman's ship, arriving at a small, remote island home to only 100 people. He made his way to the local bar, only to find the bartender and a lone man, sitting by himself in the bar. Out of all the bar stool, he chose to sit right next to him, but the man didn't even acknowledge him, continuing to mind his own. Are you Buggy the Clown? Luffy asked, ordering his signature milk from the bartender. The man gave him an odd look, but it did get a reaction from him. "What's it to you?" The clown spoke up, turning to look at Luffy. He must have been drinking his life away at this bar. Funny enough, this was not the Buggy he knows, for he wore no makeup, and he did not wear his signature red nose. He was just a broken man, with no purpose. Where was Kabaji and Moji? Probably not with him yet. Maybe this was before he was the joyous idiot that he met in his early days. Why was he so miserable? "I heard you are a pretty reliable guy." Luffy pointed at his straw hat, causing Buggy to wince a little. "Shanks." He said that. "Huh?" Buggy then turned away once more. "I'm not your guy, kid. All I'm good for is getting others killed." "I don't see it that way." To this, Buggy slammed his glass on the table, shattering it in his hands. Blood began to flow from his hands while the bartender hid in the back room. "You don't know jack shit, kid. The treasure of Captain Jack. It's all I ever wanted for a long time. My notoriety alone gathered me a crew of idiots who saw me as a god. I got a big head and thought I was invincible. And so I went after Captain John's treasure, only for my entire crew to be wiped out. All of them, dead, all but me." Buggy expected Luffy to see him as a monster. But he didn't, he was indifferent. "Your former crew would be very disappointed in you." Luffy removed a cloth from his pocket and gave it to Buggy, to stop the bleeding. They knew what they were getting into. Knowingly risked their life to sail with you. "But why am I the only one who survived? Ever stop and wonder how lucky you are? It could be fate, destiny or whatnot." Instead of asking, "Why not survive?" it took a moment for Buggy to take in, but eventually Luffy could see him come to a conclusion. "I never saw it that way, I guess." Buggy wrapped his hands in the cloth after pulling the shards of glass from it. "I got to go." Buggy then got up and left. He needed time to process things. Luffy gave him his space. He had a feeling that Buggy will need some time to process things. Day 4, he found a nice place to rest for the night, under a massive tree that gave enough shelter. The ground was cold and lumpy, but who can complain? At least he didn't have to worry about dying just yet. Luffy hadn't had a good night's rest yet, and this would be the closest to one. The reason why he woke up in a jolt was due to a commotion at the same local tavern he found Buggy in, though he was surrounded by some ruffians. Luffy immediately dashed to that direction, even going as far as activating Gear 2 to rush at the scene. What he found was a bloodied and battered Buggy, laying flat on his back. Above him, a familiar man, one that Luffy did not expect to show up just yet. "This your friend Clown? Another person in Roger's crew, is it? Bunch of losers you all are. I tell you." Around him, a group of 15 thugs laughed at their captain's joke. Even in his early days, it seems that the strongest of the East Blue surrounded himself with a bunch of people. "He's no friend." Buggy tried to cover for the stranger in the straw hat. He didn't want to involve him in his problems, but Luffy insisted. "Yeah, and you just made a mistake." Luffy began to step up, but this caused a laughter to erupt from the man. "Don't you know who I am?" He revealed his 2 golden pistols, pointing them at Luffy. "I'm Don Krieg." Then, the future Armada captain unleashed 2 bullets straight to the heart and brain of Luffy. Unfortunately for Krieg, Luffy was a rubber man. The bullets merely bounce off of him, hitting 2 of his men. Krieg became wide-eyed, immediately hiding behind his men, using them as a meat shield while he made his escape. "I don't give a fuck who you are, you've hurt my friend." Buggy was shocked, didn't really think anything of the boy as they only had one conversation. Buggy was about to protest, wanting to protect the young man's life before making a mistake on him, but as he was slow to get up, what he found was not what he expected. Luffy stood tall, his hand grabbing Krieg by the neck. Around them, the 15 thugs he brought with him were all passed out. Buggy was wide-eyed at what transpired. It seems that the boy was full of surprises. The only person that ever gave him this feeling of hope was his former captain and reluctantly that red-haired buffoon. "Oh hey Buggy." Luffy simply tossed Krieg to the side like he was nothing. "Cool, you wore your makeup." Sure enough, Buggy, despite being bloodied up, was wearing his clown makeup, complete with his red nose. "Yeah, I guess I am." He chuckled. "Some stupid kid reminded me that in the pirate world, our lives are always at risk." Luffy helped Buggy to his feet, assisting him over his shoulder so that he could get his wounds checked out. "How'd you get in a fight anyway?" Krieg bad-mouthed Captain Roger, and I just snapped. You dumbass, losing against some stupid thugs. Luffy chuckled and so did Buggy. Yeah, I guess I lost a step in my prime. Never too late, you know. If you want it enough, I'm sure you can do it. All this positivity reminds me of freaking Shanks. Blah. The rest of the trip to the local hospital was just random conversation. Luffy dropped him off and bid his farewell, hopefully inspiring him to jump-start his pirate career. On his way out of the front door, Buggy chased after him. Mugiwara. Luffy turned to face the clown. Thanks. No problem. See you in the new world. And with that, Luffy left Buggy on his own accord. To rediscover himself, inspire him to reach his true potential. Luffy paid off another fisherman to drop him off at Goa Kingdom. It was easy from there as he returned back to his spot under the tree. Just as he was about to close his eyes, the two trainees woke him up, showering him with stories of their past 2 days of training. Day 5. It was on this day his grandfather paid him a visit. So you mean to tell me that you are from the future and you came back in the past so that you could save the world? Yeah, Luffy replied, knowing full well that his story was ridiculous to others. Okay, that explains your massive growth spurt. So tell me, how strong are you, Squirts? Monkey D. Garp was the hero of the Marines. One of the entire faction. Despite his allegiance, he had a massive heart, and he especially loved his grandson, which happened to be Luffy. Hell yeah, I'm strong. Though he could not continue his sentence, as Garp charged the pirate with a massive fist of love. Bullshit. You must be some kind of fruit user. Where did you put my grandson, you little bastard? There it was. The expected response to the news that he was from the future. Alright Grandpa, I get it. But let me tell you something. I know who Ace's dad is. Garp had been pummeling him through this point, but suddenly he stopped mid-punch. It's some random pirate who died in the past. What about it? I know that's not true, Gramps. Luffy then regained his composure and created some distance between them. His father is Goal. Shut your mouth, people might hear you. Don't you know this? Garp covered the distance between them in a matter of seconds, covering the mouth of Luffy. I guess it's true then. How? Lady Toki of Wano Kingdom sent me back in time at the cost of her life, replied Luffy. He would only tell a few people about his time-traveling mission. Luckily his grandpa was one of the people he was going to release the information to. I see. Wano Kingdom is not a place we Marines can go to freely. I have so many questions for you. Garp began, though Luffy stopped him. Sorry Gramps, but I can't tell you any more than that. All you can do is trust me on this one. I'm your grandson after all. Alright, fine. Well, I actually came by to check up on you, but seeing how you have grown massively stronger. Thanks Gramps. The only thing I ask from you is please look after Ace. Just, please look after him. The mood suddenly became grim, in which Garp cleared his throat. Yes, well, seeing as I don't have to worry about you as much, then I can do that. Anyway, you became a Marine in your future at least? She, you will soon see enough Gramps. Garp threw his hand in the air. This damn trip has been a headache, I tell you boy. Checking up on the new king of Goa is a surprise to say the least. Oh, you mean newly elected King Whoopslap? Luffy had heard the news of Whoopslap victory. It was a landslide, unanimous as he was who the people wanted. Yeah, damn former king retired and elected to create a democracy off of a monarchy. That is something else. Garp scratched his head and picked his nose. Well, if it helps the people, why not, right? Wise words, young man. Well then I guess I'm off to say hi to the new king. Whoopslap of the Goa Kingdom. Maybe grab a mojito on my 2-day break. Garp left Luffy to himself, waving goodbye to his grandson. Makino's bar. Garp did in fact find himself at a bar, grabbing a few drinks to pass his day. Though it was there he found red-haired Shanks, and another interesting guy by the name of Mihawk. You're lucky I'm on my day off, brat. Garp sat beside Shanks, with Mihawk giving him a sideway look. Oh, of course, like you can catch me, old man. Shanks teased. Thanks by the way. Don't mention it. Garp did not want to expand on what Shanks was thankful for, but if he had to guess, it must have been the information of a certain Devil Fruit's location that he happened to slip by to the red-haired pirates. By the way, Hawkeye, have you responded to the invitation to the Warlord system yet? He changed the subject. You never know who could be listening. Haven't really looked at it. I am here to duel with red-haired, and that's what I shall do. Mihawk replied. He did not care for the formalities, who he was speaking with. He had the strength to back it up. I see, count your lucky stars, pirates. I'm on vacation for the next 2 days. Garp looked around the bar, with Ben smirking at the Marine, and Lucky Rube putting up his hands as a mock surrender. He chuckled to himself as he got up to leave, and so did Shanks. We sure are. To that Shanks raised his glass before taking a drink out of it. Mihawk paid no mind, drinking a bit more to contemplate his plans for the future. Well, if you excuse me, gentlemen, I have a bartender to meet with. Shanks' eyes followed Makino as she made her way to the back stock. He then exited out of the front door of the bar and met her at the back exit of the bar. Shanks. Instead of being surprised, she immediately leapt into his arms and embraced him. I have 30 minutes to grab something to eat. Are you ready? Always, Makino. He responded with a smile. No one has ever made him feel this way, and to find this sort of feeling in the East Blue. Well, he can thank his lucky stars that Cypher Fall was after him, or he wouldn't be staying in the islands for so long. So get this, with Whoopslap. Excuse me, King Whoopslap taking reins of the Goa Kingdom, they want me as mayor, crazy. The rest of the way, the two were engaged in happy conversation. Though Shanks had a feeling deep in his guts that he couldn't stay for much longer to enjoy these moments. Or can he? Day 6. On the 6th day he let them spar until they could not move anymore. It was on this day that his father paid him a visit. A fluctuation of the weather covered Dawn Island. It was weather that would make Nami glow in excitement. He smiled to himself as he sent the two boys to do something as he conversed with the coming storm. Father. Monkey D. Luffy greeted the man who he never truly met in his days. But he knew this man, the same man who saved his hide as he almost saw defeat at the hands of Smoker all the way back in Logatown. Luffy, you have grown. The disbelief in his voice was evident. For just a couple of days ago Luffy had been merely a child, and now he had grown exponentially. Yup, hit a bit of a growth spurt. Luffy wondered how he should react. Should he hate his father for being absent all his life? But then he never really looked for his father. Don't worry, Pops, I'm the real deal. Luffy picked up 2 rocks from the floor, tossing them at 2 different trees around him. One was caught by a tall man, who wore a crow beak over his face. The other, a smaller animal, one equipped with different gadgets all over him. Friends of yours? Oh yes. Luffy, these are my comrades, Lindbergh and Karasu. The duo nodded their heads at Luffy, to which he returned the gesture. Well, it seems that you are well on your own path, Luffy. Whatever it is, I will always be watching. Sure, do what you want. Luffy then started walking away, but he remembered something he needed to ask his own father. He did it before in his original timeline. He wondered if he would do it again. Dragon, are you stopping here for some time? About a week. Why, son? I have a favor to ask. Luffy then asked his father, only to get a unified agreement from the group. Thanks, and with that, he left them. Such a strong presence. Karasu was drawn to his strength. Yes, I wonder if he is a cyborg. Lindbergh pulled up an object shaped like a gun. Dragon immediately stopped on the contraption. What can't a cat make sure if your son is a cyborg? I can assure you, Lindbergh, he is human. With that, the trio left. Luffy was disappointed that Lindbergh didn't escalate the situation by firing his gun. Oh well. So Luffy found the trainees, and on the 6th day, he told them to meditate. And boy, were they going to be in for a surprise soon. Day 7. So what's the news, old man? Luffy sat on the window of the very same castle that he invaded mere days ago. In fact, it was the same spot, where he forced the king to step down from his office. Got to go to a big political meeting and whatnot, something called a reverie. Didn't want to do it. A lot of work to do here in the Goa Kingdom, but I have to if I want the world government to recognize my reign and leave me the hell alone. The old man never changed. King Whoopslap gracefully accepted his position and immediately went to work. Heavier taxation on the rich, more incentive for work and programs for the lower class citizens. First order of his project was cleaning out the Grade Terminal, relocating the people that live there, and rebuilding community center he Grade Terminal used to be. Second order of business was renaming the kingdom into something else, to rejuvenate the passion of the citizens and putting the darkness of the last family in the past. Right now Windmill Kingdom and Dawn Kingdom were leading the polls. Everyone was passionate about the possible changes, and King Whoopslap was popular amongst the masses. If his time travel could affect people even in the smallest way, he was going to help his home country prosper rather than fall in the hands of Starry. I don't know who to trust yet to watch over me. Say kid, you wouldn't happen to be busy this next week, would you? King Whoopslap was a cautious man, and a good judge of character. He knew Luffy was a good man, despite his sudden, unexplained growth spurt. How long have we been talking? Accounting for travel time, about 2 weeks. Luffy was going to have to talk with Shanks, but he can't pass up this chance. Sure, I'll be your bodyguard, old man. Easy and simple. Luffy couldn't believe he was going to see what happened in the Reverie in the past. He handed in making it happen, of course, but it is still an instance to think about. Great kid, we leave at dawn tomorrow. Dawn. Dawn. I really like the name Dawn Kingdom. But Windmill Kingdom is also a good name. Whoopslap whispered under his breath, on his way to meet up with local builders to discuss projects for Grey Terminal. Despite Luffy hanging out in the king's chamber, and running around the castle like he owned the place, Whoopslap never stopped him. Formalities and grandeur was never what Whoopslap wanted in his ascension. He wanted change and prosperity for his citizens. Makino's bar. Luffy knew exactly where to find Shanks, hanging out with Makino. Hey Shanks. Luffy began, as he was waiting behind the bar once more for Makino to get on her lunch break. Oh Luffy, just the person I was looking for. Shanks stood up. Listen, I know you have to leave by next week, but can we hold it just a bit more? Another week maybe? Sure, I know you want to get this destiny thing handled and… Wait, did you just say okay? Shanks didn't hear him at first, but then it finally processed. Yeah, no problem, I'm hitching a ride with you anyway. Okay, then, see you then. Sure thing Shanks. And Luffy headed up the mountain, where he would find his students. Mountain top. On the 7th day, Luffy pushed the 2 young men to their limit, by sparing them. They were unable to lay a finger on him no matter what they tried. Listen here you 2 eggheads. Tomorrow will be a new day. So you best behave no matter what happens. I'm going on a little trip, so. Then how are we going to get stronger, boss? Trust me, you have nothing to worry about, and if there was no one to train you, I thought you all enough that you can train yourself, right? Yes boss. Good. Day 8. So at dawn, Luffy met with the entourage of guards and marines that would be escorting newly appointed King Whoopslap to the Reverie. Among the marines was his grandfather. Looks like his 2 days vacation was just to wait for the escort to the Holy Land. What are you doing here, kid? Garp pulled Luffy to the side, whispering to him. I need to know what I'm fighting, right, so going to the head of the snake would be the best. Luffy responded. He needed to know what he was facing. In his time in his original timeline, he only reached the pinnacle of the Marines, never the world government in its entirety. Hey Gramps, care to show me what your prime looks like? Stupid kid, my prime is all the time. Garp slammed his fist on the palm of his hands and smiled menacingly towards Luffy. While before in his younger days he would be scared, this time he welcomed the challenge. Back in Fuchsia Village, where a new mayor had been elected, Ace and Sabo cheered for a moment, before sneaking out to go to their training. Can you believe that Sis Makino became mayor? Sabo said as he walked side by side with Ace. I couldn't think of anyone else better than her for the job. So big bro Luffy is gone on his trip. What do you think he has in mind for us? Sabo and Ace finally arrive at their meeting place, where they found 3 intimidating figures waiting for them. Ah, so you are the little squirt Straw Hat wants us to watch over. The small, bipedal cybernetic cat had a massive smile over his face as he played with his gun. I didn't think our scouting mission was going to turn out to be entertaining. Karasu looked down on the boys, thinking of how strong they'll be after training with the strongest of the newly founded revolutionaries. Hello Ace and Sabo, we are asked by Luffy to help in your training. Dragon took a knee to be at eye level with them. The 2 brothers looked at one another and nodded their heads in unison. Suddenly, they built up what little momentum they had, and combined for a missile drop kick onto Dragon's face. Brother Luffy said don't trust strangers, Ace yelled. Karasu and Lindbergh couldn't help but laugh, with the former hiding it and the other hysterically rolling on the floor. This was going to be harder than it looked. Day 9, Day 10, Day 11, Day 12. It took 3 days to travel from the Goa Kingdom, pending a name change, to the Holy Land, Marijo. For lack of a better word, it was magnificent, grand in that everything was covered in gold and all sorts of rare metal. The streets were lined with pearly white marble, along with a line of people dressed in all white. Luffy could only assume that they were slaves, but he can't make a scene or there could be some dire consequences from his travel back in time. King Whoopslap had Luffy walk by him, his most trusted personnel from all the people that were guarding him. Again, he was a good judge of character, and there was something about the young man that drew people into him. Unfortunately, Luffy had to leave his straw hat on board the escort ship. He could not be seen in the Holy Land with the hat. It was Garp's orders. And no matter how much he protested, Garp would not budge, even using armament hockey to shut him up. Speaking of Garp, he drilled some marine training onto Luffy as if to convince him to join the Marines. The 6 powers was a start, but Luffy was yet to master any of it. Luffy would come out battered and bruised by the end of the last 3 days, and yet he would always come back for more. Garp found his tenacity to be inspiring, pushing his own men to be more proactive in their training, citing his own grandson as a model example. Back at the Reverie, King Whoopslap was receiving deadly glare from the masses, for the former that ruled the Goa Kingdom was easy to manipulate and influence on the votes. Whoopslap was not up for shenanigans. He was a respectable, no-nonsense king who looked out for his people. That was why King Cobra, of Alabasta, was the first to greet him. Luffy remembered the Sage King. He did leave an impression on him. His escorts were Pell, Igaram, and Chaka, an impressive group to say the least. Don't mind them. King Cobra greeted King Whoopslap, extending his hands to the new king. Luffy found the exchange as a positive, but his ears perked up when an annoying voice was yelling at a distance. Something about the event being super boring, and he wanted to go home. He looked at the general direction of the complaining and found Wapol as a young man, throwing a hissy fit at his father. Well then, shall we? King Cobra joined King Whoopslap in entering the meeting chamber. Everyone was allowed one person with them throughout the meeting. The conversations were mindless, but Luffy took note of the familiar people he saw in the room. King Cobra was loudly advocating for the desegregation of the fishman population, while King Riku of Dressrosa was supporting his claim. The King of the Drum Kingdom spoke in favor of the request as well, but Prince Wapol voiced his disdain at his father's request. King Elizabello was indifferent to the entire case, which was a surprise for Luffy as that man was part of his armada. The rest couldn't be bothered. They cared more about their own pockets. Nothing got done during the first day of the Reverie, primarily a bunch of wealthy individuals trying to get wealthier. And so Luffy escorted King Whoopslap out of the meeting hall, where social hour occurred afterwards. Noble efforts there, King Cobra. The King of Goa Kingdom approached his new ally. But it seems that these people do not want changes to happen. I agree. This time, it was King Riku of Dressrosa who approached the duo. Beside him was a menacing-looking gladiator named Kairos. Luffy kept closest to eavesdrops on their conversation. At the same time, he had been building a mental map of the place, just in case it would be useful for later. He didn't know if he just got smarter, but he paid attention to the little details now, which would make Law so proud of him if he knew. Anyway, Luffy was able to count about 200 guards on just the social hall. Then there were about 500 more surrounding a massive building, from the towers to the lower floor. But nobody was given access to it. He wondered what was there, but without getting closer, he wouldn't get a chance to take a peek. At least not yet. Day 13, Day 14, Day 15, Day 16, Day 17, Day 18. These past 6 days consist of primarily scouting missions, listening to mindless debates between the politicians, and nothing getting done in the end. He used his time wisely, memorizing the layout of what he had access to. Then he tested his luck on how close he could get within the important buildings before being forcefully turned away by the royal guards. He would feign a mistake before apologizing and going on his way. He wondered how strong the guards were, maybe he could take them. But then there were so many that it might just not be possible at this point. One more day of political strife. Luffy was able to learn so much, yet not enough to justify the one-week trip to the Holy Land. He made connections with different officers of different lands like Chaka, Pell, and Igaram of Alabasta. They were really cool people, proud of their historical heritage along with the beauty of their oasis. King Elizabello dropped down his guards when he got to talking with Luffy, revealing the pressure and expectation of an entire country. He truly wanted to support the movement of banning segregation against the fishmen population, but then he would lose financial backing from the other kings. Would you rather be a bad person, mixed with bad people? Or would you rather be a king who stands for what's right? This left an impression on the king, causing him to sway towards the side of Alabasta, Dressrosa, and Goa. Another surprise was the sudden support of King Ramen of Kano country. When the other kings began changing their stance, the king of Kano immediately switched sides. Luffy was surprised at this, seeing as this was the country where members of his armada, Sai and Old Man Chinjao, were from. So now Alabasta, Dressrosa, Goa, Prudence, and Kano were now voting together. 5 out of 50 kings was still not enough to push the issue forward though. Drum Kingdom wouldn't even step up with the same original fear as Elizabello. Now on the last day of socializing, the 5 kings were joined by their desire to find change in the world. While trading would be hard, they agreed to work together in spite of the other kings looking down on them. They were unable to make a change to the world this time, but in 4 years' time, they will come back with a stronger case. Luffy found inspiration in the political strife, despite thinking that it would be boring at first. This gave him the proper boost to enact his plan. He went into his room and dug into his bag. A red demon mask was in his hands. It was time to explore the Holy Land. He wasn't really the sneaky type, but he knew how to keep quiet. It was easy to move at the dead of night when the guards were relaxed. After all, the Holy Land had only ever been infiltrated one time, and that was by luck. Regardless, Luffy headed to the most heavily guarded place in the entire Holy Land. What was so special about that building? They kept it under heavy guards all the time. So Luffy snuck onto the roof of the building, sliding down to one of the high windows and opening it forcefully. It was locked, sure, but that never stopped him. He ensured that nobody heard him breaking in before sliding into the building. Curiously, he fell onto the marble floors, and before him, an empty throne surrounded by different kinds of weapons. That was it? That was the big fuss? An empty freaking throne? Couldn't have been all there was to it. But Luffy sensed approaching figures and immediately used Gear Second to get back to the upper window. It was too far to hear their conversation and they seemed to be actively blocking out any attempt to be heard by others. Maybe some sort of hockey. So he decided to just retire for the night. He did not want to get caught in the Holy Land and risk being sent to Impel Down. A fucking empty throne. Go figures. Day 19, Day 20, Day 21. Then the entire event finally came to an end and people started heading to their ships. The Goa Kingdom lost many allies due to their new stance, but gained the respect of Alabasta, Kano, Prudence, and Dressrosa. So there he was, lying in his own bunker, relaxing from the long formality-ridden week. It frustrated him to no end that he wasn't able to get more information on the world government on his visit, especially the stupid empty throne, but at least he knew what it looked like, in case he had to travel here once more. It was time to go home, and it was time for more training with his grandfather. The journey back took another 3 days, mostly training and advising here and there for the new king. As soon as he got back, he made the slow walk to his sleeping place, just up above the mountain. And just as he was about to close his eyes, the sound of 2 frantic boys filled his ears. Boss, wake up. Ace shook Luffy into consciousness. He was very groggy from the lack of rest, as the sunlight pierced through his gaze. He took a moment to wake his body up, then he finally addressed the young man. "What?" exclaimed Luffy, making a comical facial expression. "We did it! Look!" Sabo was jumping up and down while Ace pointed at his pinky finger. They sure did it all right. Sabo's toe was covered in armament hockey while Ace had his left pinky finger covered in the black coating. At least they managed to get a little bit of it despite being so young. And now his week was up and it was time to set sail with Shanks to the new world. And now it was the last day and the 2 boys managed to get a grasp of hockey, even just a little bit. Good. Guess Dragon and his goons were some help then. Finally, now I can leave knowing that you both have the basics at least. Now hone your skills, push each other and more importantly, do not die. He instinctively looked at Ace with this statement but quickly looked at Sabo as well. Well, we did kick their ass at first but we let them train us. They left after a week though, so we had to teach ourselves the rest of the time. Nobody is killing me now that I have this new power, bro, Ace exclaimed. Yeah, I hope so. Wait, did you just call me bro? Luffy asked, in which Ace was perplexed. Sorry, I didn't. I meant boss. Ace began, but Luffy held out his hand to stop the young man. No, it's okay. Bro is good with me, but I am your big bro, got it? Same to you, Sabo. It felt so good to go back to how it used to be, even for only a moment. Alright big bro, exclaimed Sabo, though he had been sheepishly hiding something in his back the whole time. What is it? Hand it over. Luffy pointed at whatever Sabo had been hiding, in which the little boy revealed to be 3 cups and a sake bottle. Big bro, we heard of this tradition where if people share a drink together then they're eternally bonded as brothers. We were thinking you will share a drink with us, said Sabo sheepishly, in which Ace nodded his head enthusiastically. They were expecting Luffy to flat out laugh at them or get angry for a thing, but instead, well, the big scary pirate man with a straw hat was bawling out, crying. Of course I would share a drink with you too, Luffy proclaimed, and he took a moment to compose himself. The Straw Hat teenager could not believe that he would still partake in the brotherly bonding between the youngsters. Before sailing off into the new world with the Red Force pirates, Luffy raised a glass of sake, along with young Ace and young Sabo. To brotherhood, proclaimed Ace. To eternal bond, exclaimed Sabo. This was the happiest he has ever been, especially with the growing turmoil in his family. To ASL, Luffy merely whispered as he was extremely emotional from the events that will transpire. ASL? What does that mean, big bro? Ace asked the pirate. Ace. Sabo. Luffy. Explained Luffy, to which the 2 children stupidly grinned. ASL. Exclaimed the duo, to which they all decided that this was the opportune time to drink their sake. Luffy downed his drink, used to the burning sensation coursing through his entire being. Meanwhile Sabo and Ace spat out their drink, not used to the strong spirit of sake. You boys train well, I will see you both in the new world, you hear? Luffy ruffled both of the youngsters' head before stretching his arm on a nearby tree, then catapulting himself to the sky. Bye big bro. See you later, exclaimed Sabo, who had tears welling from his eyes. Ace did not say anything, though his eyes were filled with tears. Mayor House. Before heading to the port, on the front of the mayor house of Fuchsia Village, Luffy was met with the new king of Goa along with the new mayor of his hometown. King Whoopslap, Mayor Makino, what can I help you with? I just wanted to thank you, Luffy, for being my little brother. Take care of yourself, always. Mayor Makino embraced Luffy, not questioning how he grown so much. And for all the citizens of Dawn Kingdom, I also thank you, Luffy, for being, well, you never change, young man. Whoopslap placed a hand on his shoulder and gave him a nod. Despite ascending to kingship, Whoopslap never changed as a fundamentally good person. Luffy thanked the 2 people who were so present in his youth. He was glad he was able to make a positive change to the newly renamed Dawn Kingdom. Whoopslap will be an excellent ruler, along with Makino as a mayor of Fuchsia. Port of Dawn Island. Luffy landed on both feet as Shanks had his back turned on him. The Straw Hat pirate decided to surprise the red-haired man by smacking him on the back of his head. Shanks spat out his drink to the man in front of him, causing panic to both Luffy and Shanks. So we meet again, Mugiwara. The deadly glare could kill a common man, causing Luffy to tremble ever so slightly. For you see, Shanks was not talking to a random person. Shanks had been conversing with Dracule Mihawk. Hey Mihawk, been a while, hasn't it? Well, we're going to be going now. It was nice seeing you again. Luffy began to drag Shanks towards the Red Force to avoid an unnecessary battle with Mihawk. Mugiwara. His voice was chilling, deadly, and authoritative. This caused Luffy to stop once more, and Shanks sped walk to the Red Force, leaving the 2 men to settle their animosity. I have a proposition. Go on. This perked Luffy's interest. This seems like it was headed to where he thinks it will be going. It has come to my attention, in my times of crossing swords with Red-Haired, that you are a fascinating individual. You proclaim to be the next Pirate King. Such a bold proclamation. Though I have to admit, you are quite strong for your age. Mihawk retrieved his black blade, Yuru, from his back and pointed it at Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy, if you are to become Pirate King, then I will aid you in your quest for my mission of becoming the world's greatest swordsman aligned with your own aspirations. This caused many jaws to drop to the floor as Shanks and his crew were eavesdropping on their conversation. Even Luffy was too shocked to speak, causing Mihawk to clear his throat. Well? Fuck yeah is my answer. Alright Mihawk, you can join me on my quest, but you better not be dead weight, you hear me? Luffy replied cockily, causing a smirk to form in the mouth of the swordsman. Wouldn't even dream of it, Captain, replied Mihawk, causing the red-forced pirates to drop on the floor. Mihawk returned his sword on his back while joining Luffy in entering the famed red-haired pirate's ship, the Red Force. For a serious guy, you sure are dramatic, Luffy states, causing a scoff from Mihawk. Dare he even say a laugh? I suppose, though Mugiwara, your desire will be the most dangerous of them all. For you see, I was there during the execution of Gold D. Roger, I was there when the golden age of piracy was kick-started by his announcement of One Piece. Stronger pirate crews are closer to the One Piece than we are at the moment. What is your plan? His concerns were true, though his goal of becoming the Pirate King was now secondary to saving the world. Of course only Shanks knows about this, so that red-haired bastard better stay quiet. While traveling through time has changed my personality ever so slightly. I feel more competent and daring. Real simple, I gather strong allies. You are a lucky addition to my merry crew. The rest of the people I want in my crew are around, and we will get them all before we challenge for the final treasure, the One Piece. Real simple, alright, in his mind at least. You know, I'll take it back, I'm still as brain dead as usual. Then our passage to the New World will be in vain if we have no escape from the land of Charlotte Linlin. That is where we are going eventually, correct? Though Luffy was actually thinking ahead, even if just slightly. He already sent out a message to one of his recruits. To be exact, he was going to send the message eventually. Oi Luffy, you seriously are an interesting guy, huh? Shanks was waiting for the duo to join them. First mate Ben Beckham was the one giving out the orders for their departure while Shanks, Mihawk, and Luffy conversed with one another. Don't look at me. I didn't expect Mihawk to actually join me. In fact, I just threw a curveball. Luffy sat on a barrel located at the deck of the ship. Mihawk remained standing while Shanks took a hammock. Well, I thought he was really impressed with you and wanted to challenge you all the time in a way that he challenges me to duels, but for him to actually join you. You must be stronger than what you let off, Shanks exclaimed. Red Hockey escaped him, slightly revealing his powerful aura. I am right here, you know. I can hear both of you talking about me. To answer your question, Red Hair Mugiwara has shown the king's potential, the same feeling Gold D. Roger gave me on the day of his death. If Mugiwara is not as strong as I believe him to be, then he will die. If he is the man he is meant to be, then I will be his blade. Well, thanks for believing in me, Mihawk, and don't worry, I don't plan on dying anytime soon. Better be ready to fight till you're almost dead, exclaimed Luffy, causing a chuckle from Shanks. So how's dear old Buggy? Shanks knew Luffy wanted to check up on the clown. Hopefully, better than the last time I saw him. With this, Luffy gave him a smile. And the rest of your week? Shanks followed up. When he had to reschedule their departure, he didn't think Luffy would be for it. Boring. He still couldn't get over the fact that the big secret was an empty throne. Yours? To this, Shanks gave out an obvious blush, though only for a moment. It was whatever you know. Luffy was going. Then silences covered the trio after the fit of laugh as they let themselves fall into their own deep thoughts. Shanks was thinking about Luffy's advice from the future. Be wary of a dark user. What could that mean? He knew no one of that sorts, or did he? Mihawk had been thinking about the world government. He had a letter from them to join the Shichibukai as an agent of the Marines. He was invited to basically become a government dog. Garp reminded me of the proposition, but he knew request. He had his answer because his loyalty was placed at the hands of a stranger he barely met 3 weeks ago. How times have changed. Luffy had pulled out a piece of paper and was scribbling a letter. The letter consists of his request, his way out of Whole Cake Island, which in turn would be a strong addition to his crew. Although he was not sure if the person who was receiving it would take him seriously. Maybe they would think it was a prank. Whatever, if push comes to shove, then he would just have to push his way through Big Mom and her many children, hopefully with the assistance of his initial choice for a first recruit. A second letter was written by Luffy, one of which was going somewhere in the North Blue. Hopefully the letter gets there on time. Mihawk had called for a messenger bird along with Luffy. Each one of them handed the bird a letter, one for different locations. Mihawk sent out a letter for his answer to the government's invitation. while Luffy sent out a letter to his hopefully future ally. "Get some rest guys, we have a long journey ahead of us. Our first stop after the calm belt is going to be Sabaody Archipelago." Shanks waved goodbye to the duo while going to his sleeping quarters. Luffy was trembling from his chair. An interesting idea went through his head. "Hey Mihawk." "Yes, Captain? Ready to raise some hell?" "Where at?" "Sabaody Archipelago." Luffy had a plan on the island where world nobles frequently visit. Where people are treated as nothing but property. Where the slave auction house resides. "I see," was Mihawk's response. He did not really know the man completely, but he knew that he was not going to be bored in his adventures. Fishman Island, Fishman District. A saw shark fishman was speaking with a young aspiring sun pirate recruit. "Humans are mere garbage creatures created to destroy all of which we hold dear. Believe me kid, in the future when you are part of the Sun Pirates, you will see what I mean," the saw shark fishman proclaimed, crossing his arms as he looked over the distance of the ocean. "Yes boss Arlong sir, of course. Humans will always be yes, there is no way about it." Suddenly an explosion could be heard all over Fishman District. In the distance, a massive submersible with the indentation of a dragon hoof was as clear as day. These were the 10 Ryubito, coming for some more slaves for their entertainment. "They are not brave enough to thread our seas. These are those damned slavers. Hurry kid, save yourself. I will hold them off." Although this saw shark fishman was ruthless in his hatred of humans, he will do anything for his own people. "Hatchin, Karubi, hurry and clear the area." "Yes boss," exclaimed the duo, both of which were strong officers in the Sun Pirates. The octopus fishman and ray fishman followed the orders of their captain. "Komian bastards. You want a fishman? You have to go through me." The saw shark fishman released his saw blade while facing down his impending doom. For before him, a giant submersible was closing in. "Boss!" Hatchin screamed as he pointed behind him. There the kid stood, with a small coral blade ready to assist him. "Kid, I said get back." He picked up the little fishman and threw him to where Karubi stood. Though his actions to assist the young warrior caused him to miss the harpoon that penetrated his upper arm. In the distance where his sister resides, a massive blood-curdling screech could be heard all over the district. For his sister could feel the pain he was experiencing. "Brother!" she screamed as the giant mermaid collapsed on the ground. It was at that moment that a vision went through her head. King, Savior, Redemption, Blood, New Era, a Straw Hat. What does this all mean? Why this vision now when her brother was in dire trouble? "Show me what will happen to my brother, you damned power." Then she saw it. She saw what would happen to her brother. And an air of relief encompassed her, knowing now what the future holds for him. "Fuck you." He brought his sword over his head and cut the harpoon that penetrated his arm. Though he got up to his feet, a series of electric nets were launched at his people. Like hell I'll let that happen. The lone fishman that day became a legend to his people, as with deadly injuries, he launched himself forward cutting as many nets as he could. A slice to the left, then to the right, and finally through the middle. His efforts were rewarded with the safety of his people. Though he now collapsed on one knee in the middle of a valley, facing the giant mechanical slavers submersible. He had no more energy to fight, and the slavers did not want to leave empty-handed. With one final net, the slavers aimed it at the fishman hero over the valley. He smirked as the net came his way. He raised his hands in front of him, showing it to his captor. Then he lifted his middle finger and flipped off his captors as the net encompassed his weakened body. Electricity coursed through his body and yet he gritted his teeth. He did not give them the satisfaction of his scream from pain. Instead he passed out without a sound escaping from his mouth. As his eyes closed he was being pulled away from his home, and in the slavers' wake, as well as frustration, they launched hundreds of missiles, barraging the poor district of the fishman population. His last thoughts were, where are the royal family, the king who was supposed to protect his people? He was a hero to his people, though now on his own. Stories traveled quickly of the hero of Fishman District. The hero by the name of Arlong the Saw. The life of Dracul Mihawk was really simple. At first it was only a journey to become the strongest. Then it became a conquest, and endless travel to find a worthy challenger. His quest brought him to red-haired Shanks, a man with prominent swordsmanship. He frequently challenged the pirate to a draw, and the two would usually share a drink before Mihawk would head out to challenge another. His boredom grew as he became stronger, and only Shanks became a challenge for him. Marines took notice of his immense strength as they extended an invitation for him to join the Warlord program, an alliance of sorts giving him unlimited freedom in exchange for his services to the Marines. He tossed the paper to the side as he headed to Dawn Island, the last known location of Shanks. As fate would have it, he overheard a monster amongst the residents of Dawn Island. It was there he met Luffy, his new captain. It was strange to submit himself after another man's leadership, but this was the man who he would help raise to the ranks of the Pirate King. Presently, he trains on the deck of the ship known as Red Force. It was there where he performed his daily training regimen. He brought his massive black blade, Yuru, over his head, counting each swing. 998. 999. 1000. Sweat dropped furiously on his face as he completed one part of his training. He then switched his grip to his right hand and began again. 1, 2, 3. His life was simple. His goal was only to become the best. If he wasn't the best, then he failed. It only took an hour to complete his daily regimen, and this day was special, for it was the day that they arrived in Sabaody Archipelago. The calm belt was fun, as usual. He managed to bathe his blade in Sea King's blood, though he only attacked those that attacked their ship. Mihawk demanded everyone to stand down as he performed the ship's security by himself. Luffy gave him the approval to do so, while Shanks was happy to let him get loose. Mihawk fended off as many Sea Kings as he could, but to those that broke his perimeter, he had to end their existence. Hopefully the King of the Seas does not seek him for vengeance. Not even he would want to challenge the power of King Neptune. The King of the Sea could rival the strongest of the surface world, and hopefully he did not awaken his wrath. As they near Sabaody Archipelago, Mihawk took the opportunity to take a quick shower, resting his mind and body for his captain's plan. He knew full well what the ending was for what they were about to do. Luffy could not contain himself as the Red Force docked on the island. Remembering his last two experiences on the island wasn't the most pleasant of times. The first of which caused the separation of his crew, the second, a reunion. But with Sabaody, came the human trafficking, slavery, and celestial douchebags running around the archipelago. I'm going to meet an old friend, behave yourself Luffy. And no matter what, do not engage the celestial dragons. Shanks disembarked from his ship joined by Lucky Roo and Ben Beckham. They eventually disappeared in the crowd. It was then that Mihawk joined him. "Ready, Captain?" Mihawk asked. He wore his usual attire, although he did not bring his coat for this encounter. He was shirtless with white wrapping on his waist. He wore his usual black pants and shoes. His beard was perfectly tripped with his cross necklace hanging from his neck. Finally, the most notable of his features was Yuru, the black blade along his back. Luffy finally stood up. His face was fuming with anger. He could feel their despair. People were crying as their spirits withered away for a lifetime of unwilling servitude. Slaves. Several different species have been pushed to the lowest in order to further the pride of celestial dragons. Slaves. They were forced to do as the slavers pleased, unimaginable things that dehumanized them. It was wrong, and Luffy knew that today will be the day that legal slave trading will end in Sabaody. Luffy led the way as he followed the area with the most restless aura in the entire island. He held his head high as his eyes flared in anger. Every step he could feel his emotions swelling. In front of them a celestial dragon rode another human, laughing along as he made his slave eat the grass on the ground. "I want another one, this one is old and useless," mused the piece of shit. "I ought to just kill you here and now, but I'm kind, I'll let my new slaves kill you." "Please sir, I have a family," the man cried as he chewed on the grass off the ground, forced by the celestial dragon to consume. "Did I say you can talk trash?" A jolt of painful electricity coursed through the body of the poor man as the celestial dragon wanted to punish him. "Your name is now Trash and you do not speak ever, Trash." Despite the inhumane treatment, many people chose to ignore what was happening. What could they do? The celestial dragons have a firm grasp on the world. They are worshipped as godlike beings. So what could they really do? Nothing is the answer. But the man who could care less was there that day. Monkey D. Luffy walked towards the celestial dragon, each step causing a crater to form under his feet, His fist was curled in his rage. The celestial dragon took notice of the man approaching him. Hey, stop where you are. Do you know who I am? His guards blocked Luffy's path, but they were quickly forced out of the way as Mihawk took the defiance as a sign to cut them down. He took Yuru and slashed the guards across their chest, effectively eliminating them from Luffy's path. Their blood floated in the air as time seemingly slowed down for the celestial dragon. No words were said that day as Monkey D. Luffy took every ounce of his strength to bring his fist back, every pent-up emotions he built up throughout this time-travel debacle, his anger to not being able to save his friends in his timeline, finally being released to the skull of the celestial dragon. His fist connected, sending the celestial flying throughout several hundred yards, crashing through buildings. If it wasn't for his protective suit, he would be dead. Mihawk cut the cuff that bound the slave, and before it exploded, Mihawk had swiftly tossed the exploding collar to the sky. "I'm free!" exclaimed the former slave as tears flowed from his eyes. "My family! Oh, my family!" He then began to run towards the port, unsure where to go, but as far away from the celestial dragon as the way to go. The celestial dragon finally stopped at the footstep of the auction house, where an auction was currently taking place. The announcer had just presented a powerful fishman for sale. Sold for 1 million berry, where the highest bidder happens to be the father of the celestial dragon that Luffy sent flying. As he was given his prize, he danced gleefully at obtaining a fishman for a slave. Those were rarities in their market. "Listen here, you filthy maggot, bend on your knees and be my footrest," exclaimed the slaver. The fishman did not comply, giving him a deadly glare. "Oh, you need to learn quickly." It was then that the slaver shocked the collar which held the fishman. This caused him to scream out in pain, finally collapsing to his knees. "That's a good boy." It was then that the slaver placed his feet on the back of the fishman and laughed to himself as he successfully submitted the fishman to his will, albeit it was despicable. Learn your place, you fishmen are merely objects meant to be possessed by humans. People have this delusion that you can ever be above what you truly are, but you can't. You are nothing but bottom dweller, mere footrest for us. Listen well as I. Though shock quickly filled the room as a commotion occurred in the entrance of the auction hall. The celestial dragon's son passed out in the entranceway, visibly twitching uncontrollably. His suite was filled with blood, royalty blood that means so much to them. "What is the meaning of this?" exclaimed the elder celestial dragon. Though his throat suddenly found itself at the mercy of a giant black bly across his body. Beside him a man with a straw hat sat comfortably, though he had been rubbing his hands together, seemingly containing himself from a violent outburst. The elder slowly took his foot off of the fishman, quietly putting his hands to the sky. The fishman stepped back a little, giving a scornful look at his slaver and an equally disdainful look at the bladed human and the straw hat wearing human. "I'm going to tell you what happens now," he said in a low voice, then addressing the crowd who were too scared to move. "You pieces of shit who participate in this need to clear out." Now, people began to flock out, leaving Luffy, Mihawk, the slaves on the stage for auction, and the fishman's slave beside the elder celestial dragon. "Listen to me, and listen to me real carefully. This auction will no longer take place ever again or next time we meet. Your neck will not be attached to its body. You think you will be able to get away from this?" the elder celestial dragon exclaimed, as he did not even show an ounce of fear. "What you fail to understand is that I do not care," Luffy said coldly. It was at this moment that he looked at the shark fishman. His eyes remained ablaze. Then within a millisecond, the cuff that covered his neck exploded in the sky. Luffy had used a technique he learned from Elder Hu back in Udon prison. This seemed like centuries ago, but in reality it was only a couple of weeks ago. "How did you?" the man asked. "Doesn't matter, you will die soon enough." But he also found himself with his eyes behind the back of his head. The fishman had been freed, and he took this opportunity to chop the man's shoulder, effectively knocking him out. "You, who are you?" Mihawk took his blade and placed it over his shoulder. He was referring to the fishman who knocked out the celestial dragon. "I am Arlong the Saw. Who the hell are you, humans?" His voice was coated in venom as he openly hated them. Filthy creatures in his mind, only truly seeing their evil side and not their good side. "I know exactly who you are." Though Luffy finally stood up, staring at the collapsed form of the celestial dragon. "You're more than welcome to do anything at this point." Luffy took the time to hop on the stage and took the collar off of each and every single slave present in that auction. "You can all go now, be safe." Trembling erupted outside the auction hall, as the celestial dragon pressed their distress signal. Now an army of marines enclosed the auction house along with the impending arrival of an admiral. Any minute now one of the powerhouses of the marines will rain on their parade. This was not something Luffy thought of carefully, as dying or getting caught here could result in a game over scenario. But he thought he had enough failsafe with Mihawk and Shanks on his side. Disco, the man who held the auction, had his hands up. He feared for his life at the arrival of Dracule Mihawk and the strange man with the straw hat. Despite the arrival of the Marines, Luffy remained calm now with his sights set on Disco. "You need to tell whoever is in charge that I will be coming for his head." He then joined Mihawk and Arlong at the entranceway, where a group of Marines were surely waiting to ambush them. "Are you stupid? You are openly challenging the Don Quixote family?" Disco exclaimed, sure of himself that the strange man will tremble in fear at the name mentioned. "I don't give a fuck who owns this place. I'm putting an end to it," Luffy answered, then punched Disco in the face, knocking him out. He then turned to the two people beside him. He considered them people, not human, not fishman, people. Even though he had his qualm with Arlong, he could hopefully be redeemed in this timeline, hopefully. Outside these doors are an army or marines. Possibly a marine admiral arriving soon. Our way out is Shanks' ship located at the northern port of Sabaody. He then kicked the door open without warning. "I didn't agree to work with you, human." Although it was too late, as Luffy, Mihawk, and Arlong found themselves surrounded by hundreds of marines, cannons and guns pointed in their direction. Before the marines could mouth off their warning, Luffy activates Gear Second, dashing past the marines' blockade. Arlong looked at Mihawk, who smirked and brought his blade forward, disappearing in the same manner. "Fire!" exclaimed the marine captain, although the marines did not know which direction to fire. Arlong had a split second to contemplate his choices. He opted into following them for now, just to escape. If they say his name with hatred common with humans, he will kill them himself. Despite being on land, Arlong was able to keep pace with Luffy and Mihawk, although Luffy was much faster than the duo. 1 second Mihawk and Arlong were running, and the next they were met with a massive explosion as the force of a powerful hockey-infused smash, hitting the ground before them. Mihawk and Arlong stop in their path as a certain purple-haired marine admiral has two arms covered in the black resin-like armor known as armament hockey. Luffy felt it, this man was none other than Zephyr. Fuck. He did not think about him. Out of all the marine admirals that could come, he had to be the headache. That got him to thinking, who were the other admirals at this time? Was it Sengoku and Suru? He wondered. Luffy quickly stopped in his tracks and returned to aid Mihawk and Arlong. He couldn't let Mihawk die now, and Arlong, well, he can fuck off, but he felt sort of responsible for him for the time being. Arlong was the first to rush Zephyr, not knowing full well who this man was. He found out quickly that he was severely outmatched as he was flattened with a stomp in mere milliseconds. Even Mihawk, who charged the admiral, found that his blade was deflected easily and met a powerful punch squarely on his jaw. Within seconds, Marine Admiral Zephyr has defeated Arlong in his prime and Mihawk during his younger days. Dracule Mihawk, you were supposed to be one of those dogs that the world government was going to bring in. Guess your answer is as clear as day. As he prepared the cuffs, they were knocked off of his hands by a man with the straw hat. A jet stamp on Monkey D. Luffy has returned. Who might you be and how did you bypass my observation? Zephyr stated, slightly intrigued by the new arrival. But Luffy did not have time to chat, so instead of wasting time, Luffy bombarded Zephyr with a rain of punches. Gomu Gomu no Gatling. Zephyr covered his face and body with both arms as the punches had some weight within them. Though as soon as the barrage ended, the dust cleared out. His two prisoners as well as the straw hat fellow were gone. He smirked to himself and closed his eyes, sensing the trio in the distance. Luffy had bought himself enough time to retrieve Arlong and Mihawk. He would run faster if he would drop Arlong. No, that would be wrong. Maybe he should leave the giant blade. No, Mihawk won't be Mihawk without his beloved blade. So now he was stuck carrying dead weight. In the horizon he can finally see the red force. "Shanks, let's go," screamed Luffy at the top of his lungs. Despite the distance, he could see that the red force had been fully coated already. "Luffy, you dumbass. I said be good." Shanks wasn't actually understanding why the Marines were demanding for him to anchor at port, but now he knew the reason. Luffy had done something real stupid. So Shanks had been conversing with a Marine who had been forcing him to anchor, and instead of continuing diplomacy, he socked him in the face. Luffy tossed Arlong and Mihawk on the ship, panting frantically as he ran at full speed. "We got to go now." "All hands on deck, men," commanded Shanks as he could see a purple streak coming swiftly their way. He was not going to let them go easily, and the red force just needed a little extra time before it could fully submerge. Shanks pulled out his blade, Griffin, and disappeared in a red streak of his own. As the red force was going down into the ocean, Zephyr had caught up, atmates from escaping, although before he could make contact with the pirate ship, he was met mid-air by a red-haired pirate. The Marine Admiral suddenly found himself pushed slightly backwards, giving the pirate ship enough time to submerge. "Bye, Marine." With that simple exclamation, the red-haired pirate switched direction mid-air and dove after his ship. "Red hair? The hell?" Zephyr exclaimed out loud as he landed on the port of Sabaody. Two pirates actually slightly altered his trajectory. This could only mean one thing: he needs to get stronger, maybe even take up Vegapunk in his offer for a powerful mechanical arm that could enhance his own strength. Just maybe. Aboard the Red Force, Shanks finally penetrated the bubble, joining the people on deck of the Red Force. Luffy smiled at the pirate captain where Shanks had been panting heavily from the clash with the Marine Admiral. "Thanks, Shanks," Luffy said as he sighed in relief. He would have been happy to take care of Zephyr in a similar manner, but Shanks was strong, really strong. He was going to be an emperor after all. "Well, it was all of our hide that was in danger, so I had to do what a captain needs to do," Shanks states, causing his crew to laugh at their captain. Despite his light-hearted nature, Shanks took his job seriously. "So now we'll be heading to Fishman Island." "Captain, we have a problem," Ben Beckham stated as he looked through a periscope. "What is it, Ben?" Shanks asked as he was handed the periscope. Ben pointed directly in front of them. Several hundred yards in the distance he could see a Jolly Roger of a very powerful personality. "Crap. What? Why? Who is it?" Luffy was handed the periscope and it took a minute to focus on the Jolly Roger in the distance. "By the way, how did your meeting go with Rayleigh?" Luffy focused on the Jolly Roger that waved on top of a bunch of ships. "Okay, it's a big pirate crew. What's the big deal?" Shanks slapped his forehead. "It went fine. Wait, how did you know?" "Never mind, just look again. Carefully." At this point Arlong and Mihawk finally came to their senses. But Arlong had found his hands were not bound. A strange feeling, especially at the presence of humans. It was like they thought of him as equal, almost as if he was not just a fishman filth. In the presence of humans, his people are treated as nothing but animals, objects to be possessed. But in the presence of the Straw Hat Man, he was not having this feeling. Why? Mihawk shook out of his daze, finally regaining his footing. He mentally beat himself up for not reacting properly to the situation. He ended up being manhandled by a Marine Admiral. He needs to be better, he has to be better. Luffy smiled at Arlong and Mihawk, who were finally getting back on their feet. He then finally looked again as instructed, and now he could see why Ben and even Shanks was so worried. For several hundred yards from them, the Jolly Roger that currently was in Fishman Island belonged to none other than Edward Newgate, or as the name he was best known as, Whitebeard. "Oh no, Fishman Island. Here's the plan. You all let me do the talking, and the situation should not escalate." Shanks tapped his foot on the ground nervously. Presently, the group had gathered in the mess hall, where they sat around a bench table. Luffy sat in front of Shanks with Mihawk standing behind him. Lucky Roo and Ben Beckham sat beside their captain. Arlong had left them at the first opportunity that he could, not that anybody was stopping him or anything. "Okay, we won't stay for too long, right?" Luffy didn't have any major plans for Fishman Island yet. Well, maybe there's a certain annoying fishman he had to eliminate. That would be a job for Mihawk. "No, I hope we can just pass through, but I don't think Whitebeard will let us pass by his lands without knowing what we are doing here." "Alright then," Luffy confirmed. He would not cause trouble if trouble doesn't find him. That's kind of hard. Shanks and his group made their way back to the deck, giving Luffy a slight smile. I hope that the King of the Sea does not punish me for killing those beasts in the calm belt. Mihawk stated, to challenge King Neptune though would be great. I wouldn't worry about it. Luffy said as he chuckled a little. Anyways, I need you to locate and take care of a certain fishman. He goes by the name of. Got it. Mihawk said as he also joined the red-haired pirates on the deck of the ship. Fishman Island was quickly approaching. Captain, we'll be on Fishman Island in a few minutes. Mihawk stated as he returned to inform Luffy. Thank you. Arriving at Fishman Island felt tense. Whitebeard's men glared at the incoming red-haired pirates. The most notable figures were his division commanders. Each and every one of them carried a deadly aura emitting something similar to what Mihawk could produce. They were stronger than they let off during the War of the Best. He has to watch out for them or else. They docked next to the Moby. The massive ship was so masterfully crafted Luffy could only admire it, as this was the second time he saw it in person. The red-haired pirate followed the lead of Shanks, with Luffy and Mihawk bringing up the rear. Luffy couldn't help but admire the surroundings. This time he was not steam-rolling through Fishman Island as he did in his previous life. This time he could actually breathe a little while slowly making their way to Ryugu Palace. Queen Otohime. We are humbled by your presence. Suddenly the entire Red Force pirates fell on their knees, honoring the Queen of Fishman Kingdom. Mihawk also took a knee to honor the Queen, while Luffy had a stupid look on his face as he was happily digging his nose. You idiot, get on your knees. This is the Queen of the entire Fishman Island. Shanks had a deadpan look on his face as he whispered loudly to the man in the back of the group. Oh sorry Queen Sama. Though he still did not fall on his knees. The group gasped collectively, though instead of being offended by it, the Queen laughed at his cluelessness. You are an interesting one, Mugiwara-san. She then swam towards him and joined him. She then took his hands and shook it. Suddenly Luffy could see some important part of her life history. A vision passed him, as if he was looking at Queen Otohime's life through a viewer's eye. A bullet from the crowd met the Queen and her life faded. Luffy finally returned to the present time. This was freaky. It was as if he was granted selective knowledge on all beings, and it seemed to be triggered by some sort of contact, though it couldn't just be touched because he shook Shanks' hands and Mihawk's hand and he didn't see their life story. He even hit Ace and Sabo multiple times and he didn't see something he didn't already know about their life. Not only has he become more forward and confident, he could now see someone's life that took place in his original timeline. This is some weird god intervention that's happening here. Who are you puppeteers? It was as if this being wants me to really succeed. Well, thank you, I guess, whoever you are. Mr. Mugiwara? Queen Otohime had a concerned look on her face as Shanks was visibly punching his own face at Luffy's stupidity. He then quickly snapped back to his senses and saved himself. Thank you, Queen Sama. I am alright, just saw something interesting. He could see Shanks sighing in relief, though to his surprise, the Queen took his hands and dragged him ahead of the group. Come now, Mugiwara-san. Let us get you to my husband. I have a good feeling about you. Her smile was warm. It brought great comfort to him. It felt almost like she was his mother. Her aura just really brought that about her. So this was Queen Otohime, and through his look through her life, he could feel how genuine she was as a person. What he saw was her final moments. As a bullet penetrated her skin, she had no ill will. She just wanted to unify the Fishman and humans, ending the lifetime of segregation between the two races. Her smile remained in her face despite the grief of her entire family. She wanted them to see her smiling before her passing. She wanted them to continue her mission despite her death. She wanted this unification more than anything in the world. And that, on its own, told a lot of her character and willpower. Luffy was dragged to the palace by Queen Otohime, bypassing the royal guards and normal formalities of meeting the King of the Sea. Shanks had told him previously that the usual procedure is they would arrive, walk to the palace, get patted down for weapons, then wait a couple hours to meet the king, pay him respect, then head out to the next island. But I guess he gets a pass on the boring procedure for piquing the queen's interest. King Neptune. I have brought with me an interesting man. Queen Otohime opened the palace throne room without knocking. Behind the door it revealed King Neptune, sitting mightily on his throne. His younger muscular frame was a surprise to see the king having a 10-pack and long flowing blonde hair. He was so used to seeing the king as a plump-up old man, a shadow of his glory days, that this was a sight to see. And in front of him was a giant being, a monster amongst men, 13 years younger. It was none other than Edward Newgate, Whitebeard. He wielded his world-shattering Basento on right hand as he seemed to be discussing an important matter with the king. "Queen Otohime, please join me in the back room swiftly. This intrusion is unforgivable," exclaimed King Neptune. Luffy was taken aback, but Queen Otohime happily followed her husband to the back room behind the throne. It was there where their conversation could be heard outside. Despite trying to whisper, Luffy could hear what they were talking about, and so could Newgate. "My love, I told you that I can't have you intruding like this, especially when I have a guest." "Oh, you big fish you, this one is important, I can feel it." "Alright, fine, what is it with him that made you interrupt my meeting with Whitebeard, our protector?" "Well, I felt a certain way about him. It was as if the gods have blessed him with a powerful purpose. Do you get what I mean?" "Darling, you mean to tell me you interrupted my important meeting with a feeling?" "Why yes, of course. Do you question me?" Queen Otohime raised her voice slightly, causing the king to back down a little. "Of course not. Very well, let's hear what this man's purpose is." Edward Newgate was on a different level. His powerful haki naturally emitted from him. Weak beings would eventually pass out from being exposed to him for too long. Luffy was using a little more haki than he would in order to contradict the power that Whitebeard was emitting. He stared him dead in the eye, and the pirate emperor started right back at him. Luffy crossed his arms with a serious look on his face, while Whitebeard held his Basento on his right hand, standing firmly in front of Luffy. The duo had been listening in on the king and queen's conversation, and they couldn't help but snicker a little. "So, you must be something else to influence the queen as such." Whitebeard began, but mentally slapped himself. He was supposed to go into Fishman Island, pay respect to the king, and leave. Now he was morally obliged to assist the queen so that she does not die, take care of a certain annoying fishman, and now deal with Whitebeard's suspicious gaze. He quickly extended his observation haki, trying to locate Mihawk, just in case he would need backup. He found him at the entrance of the palace, waiting to be granted passage to the palace just like everyone else. Luffy wondered if a fight broke out between him and Whitebeard, if Shanks would intervene or if the man would let him get beaten down. "I suppose, I don't believe we've met. Monkey D. Luffy is my name." Luffy extended his hands. He wasn't only trying to be courteous as to defuse the tense situation. He was also trying to see if hand-to-hand contact would trigger his vision. Whitebeard stared him down a little bit longer but decided to take the handshake. "Garp's brat, eh? I'm Edward Newgate, you can call me Whitebeard." He firmly grasped the hand of the scrawny teenager. What surprised the emperor was that Luffy returned the firm grip. "So what brings you to my territory?" "Grandson, and just passing through really," replied Luffy, though in his mind, he was very confused. Where was the vision he saw earlier from shaking the queen's hands? Was it some sort of selective permeability? Whenever it's convenient. Damn you, puppeteer? Whitebeard slammed his Basento on the ground, causing a small ripple to form around Luffy. "Be on your way then. Your presence annoys me." Luffy was about to respond, but the situation was abruptly interrupted by one of the most powerful members of the Sun Pirates. A large blue whale shark who was hailed as the strongest of the fishman population, Knight of the Sea Jinbei. This disruption caused King Neptune and Queen Otohime to return from their meeting, both of which were very confused, then concerned, and lastly alarmed. Jinbei's hands were covered in fishman blood. "King Neptune, Queen Otohime. Fisher Tiger, he's dying." Suddenly everyone was in overdrive. Many things happened at once. King Neptune summoned his carriage, bringing Queen Otohime and Jinbei with him. Despite being quick swimmers, the carriage would still be a faster way to the Fishman District. Luffy and Whitebeard were left in the throne room, and they both looked confused on what to do next. "I'm going to follow them," Luffy began, and to his surprise, Whitebeard nodded his head. Then the emperor sat on the stairs that led to the king's throne, caressing his beard as he fell deep in thoughts. After some time, he decided to go outside. Outside the palace, the red-haired pirates were just making their way inside the castle when a group of fishmen rushed past them. Amongst the people were the king and the queen. They did not stop for a conversation as they immediately boarded a carriage and rushed off somewhere. Luffy would casually pass them as well, saying something to Mihawk, in which case he nodded and disappeared towards the hard-shell tower. Luffy then glowed a pink color and steam emitted from his body and he was gone, following after the carriage. Shanks looked at his men to find an answer, in which case they were as confused as he was. To make matters worse, here comes Whitebeard, who was as confused as he was. "Old man," Shanks exclaimed. Despite being younger, and possibly weaker than the strongest man alive, he still carried an aura of confidence in himself. "Red-haired brat. Who was that kid with you?" Shanks was surprised by the old man ignoring his disrespect. Luffy must have really left an impression. "Fishman District, boss, what happened?" Arlong had arrived only to hear screams from the Sun Pirate headquarters. He immediately rushed to the building only to find Fisher Tiger bleeding out. He laid on a table, barely able to breathe. "Humans. They sold me out." Fisher Tiger could barely speak and Aladdin placed his hands on the man's shoulder, taking over the story. "Arlong, I am glad you are okay. The last time we heard from you, we were told that you have been captured by humans." Aladdin began by greeting his fellow Sun Pirate commander. What happened to Boss Fisher Tiger was atrocious. A human was returned to her homeland, Full Shout Village. But the boss was sold out by the other villagers to the world government. "We were ambushed by hundreds of marines." He then brought his arms forward. "I give my blood to you, Boss Fisher Tiger, but it will not be enough. We found a pack of human blood in the marine battleship that we stole. This will be enough to save your life." "No." Fisher Tiger mustered up enough energy to slap the human blood from Aladdin's hands. What would be life-saving blood ended up on the floor, staining the ground everyone stood on. "Aladdin, you are very brave for doing that. But I refuse to take the blood of which took so much from me." As he began relaying the information of his true origin, Jinbei returned with King Neptune and Queen Otohime. The Sun Pirates were about to kneel and Fisher Tiger attempted to get up to show his respect, but King Neptune held up his hands. "No, please, just tell us how we can help." The king had a lot of respect for Fisher Tiger. The man who freed his people from the humans, creating a revolution like no other. Even he could attest to the man's amazing character and drive. "King Neptune, Queen Otohime, this will be my resting place. I can't let go of my hatred against humans, and therefore I can't accept their blood." He then coughed up more blood, barely able to muster enough strength to speak. "For you see, before he could continue, the moment was interrupted by one Straw Hat Luffy, who was standing in between Jinbei and Arlong. "Why not? Why not take the blood that can save your life?" Luffy probed. He extended his own forearm, indicating that they should take his blood. "Take mine. My blood type is universal." Despite the shock of his sudden arrival, everyone looked at Fisher Tiger for his answer. King Neptune was about to say something as he looked to be fuming, but Queen Otohime held him back. "Wait," she whispered to her beloved. This eased the king slightly, allowing the conversation to commence. "Humans, you only see us as animals. There will never be a world where humans and fishmen can coexist. I have seen horrible things that humans do to my people. They kill us for sport, mocked our appearance for being blue, green, red. Worse is when they flay our people for fucking wall decoration." Fisher Tiger began to go off. His life-threatening injuries were now dissipating in his mind as anger filled his thoughts. Blood began to quickly pour out of his wounds due to the outburst. Imagine this, Mugiwara. A world where humans rode us as if we did not have thoughts of our own. Our women were treated like exotic sex slaves for the pleasure of those monsters. Tell me how this wrong can be right. I get it, I get your pain. Luffy began. What you saw in your life is the lowest that our species can go. We are not all like that. Take Whitebeard for example. He could have left Fishman Island vulnerable, but instead he decided to take it under his wing, as his territory. And he does not gain anything from claiming it. His actions are strictly to protect your people from those who have ill will. Plus, more recently I was involved in the Reverie, where 5 nations actively advocated against the segregation laws against the Fishman population. He was about to continue, but Arlong suddenly spoke up. Boss Fisher Tiger, this human is different. He saved me from a lifetime of servitude. I was going to be a slave as I was captured mere days ago. And he punished the human who attempted to own me. And did not ask for anything in return, nor did he show any animosity towards me. Arlong then looked at Luffy and gave him a weak smile. My hands were never bound. He held out his wrist to show everyone that no rope was tied around him. Take his blood, boss, please. Luffy then awaited Fisher Tiger's answer. His first thought was how different Arlong was behaving SBAG who subdued Nami's village. This Arlong was sincere in his world, even being open to receiving the aid of a human. In his timeline, Arlong would massacre his own people before any of them could think about working with a human. Maybe this is someone else completely, not twisted by the death of Fisher Tiger. I'm not here to gain anything. Nothing that I do today will be done to further my own ambition. I am doing this from my heart. So please, let me save your life. Fisher Tiger took a moment to gaze into the eyes of the human before him. He tried to read him, trying to understand why he is doing what he is doing. But nothing but clear thoughts could be seen behind his eyes. Just a pure soul trying to help. So without wasting any more time, Fisher Tiger laid back on the table he was laying on and extended his arm. Alright, was his answer. Queen Otohime quickly took control. Clear the room except Mugiwara-san and Aladdin-san, Queen Otohime commanded, causing everyone to go out of the room in a flurry. Arlong looked at Luffy one more time before heading outside. Despite the assistance of a human in this situation, there was still something that built up within him. The humans that betrayed Fisher Tiger. Arlong exited the room and gathered his belongings. He had somewhere to be. Several hours passed and everyone waited patiently outside of the Sun Pirate base. Jinbei had been conversing with King Neptune inside his carriage. The other members of the Sun Pirate were phasing around nervously. Finally, Queen Otohime exited the building. Everyone suddenly became alert, looking at her bloody gloves. He's going to be okay. But he needs to rest for some time. Queen Otohime proclaimed to the gleeful response of the entire Sun Pirates along with King Neptune. Can we see him, darling? King Neptune asked. Jinbei remained by him, trying to see the captain. Alright, but two at a time please. Before she could finish, Jinbei had entered the facility, leaving the group behind. King Neptune followed behind him and was also interested in finding out if the hero was okay. Inside the room, Aladdin could be seen slouched down on the floor taking a quick nap. The exhausting day finally caught up to him. Luffy was sitting beside Fisher Tiger, conversing with the man he just saved. Yeah, and I had a buddy who was a swordsman, and he ended up beating a stone man. Not just any stone man, but a giant stone man. Well, how did he get him to come out? Fisher Tiger had bandages all over his body, covering his fresh wounds. The blood transfusion from Luffy and Aladdin saved his life. He cut him until he revealed himself, mid-air. Luffy made a cutting gesture mid-air. Whoa! Fisher Tiger began to chuckle but quickly groaned in pain as his wounds began to hurt. Boss, be careful. Jinbei joins him quickly. Yeah, Jinbei, I am okay. Fisher Tiger once again tried to get up but could not. Sorry, King Neptune, I would kneel if I could. Nonsense, Fisher Tiger, you have done so much for this kingdom already, said the king. Thank you. He then surveyed his guest. Mugiwara, if it wasn't for Arlong, I would not even consider this. But you alone have opened my eyes to a new world, one where we can all coexist. By the way, where is Arlong? He left in a hurry earlier, I couldn't ask him where he was going. Jinbei began to, which Fisher Tiger grabbed his shirt, using what little energy he had, pulling Jinbei closer. Get him back, he's going for revenge. I know him, exclaimed the Sun Pirate captain. Yes, boss. Jinbei said shakily, finally understanding the situation. He ran back outside, hounding orders to the Sun Pirates. They won't be quick enough. Where is he going? Luffy asked. Full Shout Island, but Mugiwara, you will need assistance. Jinbei was busy preparing the Sun Pirate to worry more about what Luffy was going to do. Instead of chasing after the man, he got his men together. Luffy had dashed through Fishman Island. Being underwater slowed him down slightly, but he managed to have at least 80% of his speed. Arlong was going to do something stupid, he just knows it. As fate would have it, Mihawk joined him in his pursuit. Where to? The swordsman had just finished his mission when he joined Luffy. Arlong's gonna get himself killed on Full Shout Island, replied Luffy, determined to reach the Fishman before the worst could happen. Got it. Suddenly Mihawk sneezed. Full Shout Island. Arlong currently drifted underneath a marine battleship. He did not care for his life, as all he cared about was obtaining revenge for his boss. What the Marines did was unforgivable. He stacked the Marine ship, waiting for an opportunity to jump them at their most vulnerable. He then found his moment when the majority of the Marines were below deck and only petty officers were cleaning the deck. Arlong swam for some momentum, then jumped aboard the Marine ship. There he took care of the closest Marine to him by tossing them overboard. Another Marine tried to rush to the alarm system, to which he threw a sword at him, hitting his right leg. Arlong moved on to 2 more Marines by slamming their heads against each other. A Marine did manage to sound the alarm as Arlong made easy work of the small fodders. "It's Arlong the Saw, sir," exclaimed one of the Marine captains on a messenger snail. "Shut up," exclaimed Arlong as he grabbed the man's head and slammed it across the deck. "You shouldn't have done that," said the man on the other line of the call. It only took a few seconds, but a flash of light emitted from behind Arlong. Then he found his face planted on the deck of the ship. "Told you," said the same voice as what was on the line. "Who the hell are you?" Arlong struggled under the power of the new arrival. "Vice Admiral Bor. Saw. Lino is the name." The Vice Admiral held him down with one hand, speaking very slowly. "Arlong the Saw, you are under my command." 2 new figures joined them on the ship. The man with the straw hat was the one who spoke up, claiming the Fishman as one of his own men. "Friends of yours?" Borsellino asked as he looked at his captive. "Tisk," was Arlong's only response. "You guys asking to go to prison too, huh? Wait a minute. Is that Dracul Mihawk?" Borsellino looked at Mihawk, then the man with the straw hat. "And you must be. Who cares, just put your hands in the air and wait your turn." Though it was clear what the answer of the 2 men were, as Borsellino found half of his face cleaned right off. It was definitely a punch coming from the straw hat person. If this was done by a blade, his head would be clean off. "Now why would you do that?" Borsellino removed his fedora, placing it on the ground. He let go of Arlong for a moment before dissipating into light particles. Luffy and Mihawk stood back to back as they anticipated the first move of the Vice Admiral. A light beam suddenly emitted from the sky and was aimed for Mihawk, but due to his quick reflexes, he was able to cut the energy with Yuru. Though his swing was too wide, Borsellino appeared below him with a powerful uppercut, then quickly disappearing once more. Mihawk fell back slightly but regained his position. It was Luffy's turn now as Borsellino decided to rain him with hundreds of light particles. Luffy matched the energy with a barrage of punches. Despite his quickness, he could not catch all the light beams. Those that were able to get through grazed him slightly, but he was able to put up armament hockey to minimize the damage. Borsellino materialized beside him, mocking him. "Tell me, how come I never heard of you before, Mugiwara?" His notoriety will only continue to rise as more and more people call him by his signature look, his straw hat. Luffy took a wild swing to the light user, only to hit nothing but air. Borsellino appeared once more, this time standing above Luffy's extended arm. Too slow. Though the Vice Admiral found himself near the sharp end of a black blade. He attempted to dissipate once more into light particles, but his body would not follow. "Oh." Borsellino looked. Doiwara held it with armament-infused hands. He was still able to lean backwards so that the blade did not cut him. Luckily he cleared enough space to only be cut slightly across his chest. Mihawk quickly retrieved his place, giving room for Luffy to pull the leg of Borsellino and slam him against the deck of the ship. But that wasn't the end of the group's combination, as Arlong joined them by performing a double leg dropkick on him. Borsellino coughed up blood for the first time in a long time. He lost that battle due to his cockiness. If only he ended the trio the first time he saw them. Now he found himself unable to move as the trio ran away from their victory. Why did they not finish him? He wouldn't find out that day, maybe another time. For now he will take a nap. On one side, more marine ships approached them, but luckily on another, allies arrived. Luffy patted Mihawk and Arlong's back as the arrival of the Sun Pirates provided a way for them to escape. "Hang on." Luffy wrapped his legs along Arlong and Mihawk's waist. He then grabbed the 2 highest points of the marine ship and finally catapulted them to the direction of the Sun Pirates. As they landed on deck, Jinbei quickly gave the orders to return home. "We're going home, boys," Jinbei stated as the Sun Pirates escaped the marine ambush. Luffy gave both Arlong and Mihawk a high five as the trio managed to incapacitate a Marine Vice Admiral, even for just a moment. Jinbei couldn't help but smile, looking at the trio. Arlong, who had the most deep-rooted hate for humans, working alongside them, laughing, joking, and even having fun. Arlong the Saw, will you join my Straw Hat Pirates? Luffy finally said, causing the Sun Pirates to stop everything that they were doing. They awaited their comrade's answer. Arlong looked shocked, first looking at Jinbei, who had happy tears in his eyes, then at Mihawk, who gave him an approving nod, then finally at Luffy. Sure, he had his initial reservations against Arlong. The bastard was the man that caused so much pain to Nami. But this Arlong was still confused, never even crossing paths with Nami before. This Arlong was someone else completely, someone that can be influenced to do good instead of wasting away his talents. This is why Luffy came to a decision to add him on. The more the merrier, after all. I will join you, Captain, was Arlong's response, causing a massive eruption of cheer amongst those who were present. With that, the Straw Hat Pirates grew once more, with Captain Monkey D. Luffy, Dracule Mihawk, and the newest member, Arlong the Saw. Good, Luffy replied as he shook the Fishman's hands. In another life, they were mortal enemies. The Fishman was an oppressor, controlling a village through fear. This was not the Arlong he knew in his life. This is a new Arlong, a member of the Straw Hat Pirates. Ryugu Kingdom. Castle, sorry Whitebeard. It was quite lucky that we were able to save Fisher Tiger. King Neptune returned to his throne room, continuing their conversation from earlier. It's alright, King Neptune. So what's your answer? Whitebeard had asked something earlier to the king. Shanks had joined the meeting between the two figures, intrigued by Whitebeard's proposition. Of course. King Neptune took a moment, but his answer was quite clear. In a different timeline, events will not happen like this. King Neptune would have said, no, at the death of Fisher Tiger. Whitebeard would have gone on his way, understanding the events that transpired was bigger than his ambition. Not that I feel like I can influence your decision. Shanks began as the event that occurred in Fishman's District gave Whitebeard enough time to discuss his plans with Shanks. But I feel that he is the closest man to learning the true history. Not that I've seen it, but I feel that Whitebeard can be that man to change this world. Then King Neptune finally gave his answer. Swayed by his gratitude for Whitebeard's assistance, as well as the words of encouragement provided by Shanks. Yes, Whitebeard, the entire Fishman Island will sponsor your conquest to be the next Pirate King. Excellent. Edward Newgate had a massive smile on his face, as now is the time for him to make his move. With the backing of his powerful allies and divisions, the entire forces of Fishman Island along with his many allies, Whitebeard will find the One Piece. Back at Fishman Island at an undisclosed location, a bullhead shark fishman by the name of Vanderdecken X cursed the man known as Mihawk. He stared at where his hands used to be, trembling as they were no longer attached to his body. Through his life of slave trading, bribery, and money laundering, he felt unstable, but this swordsman comes out of nowhere and swiftly chops off both of his hands. Why? He asked the swordsman. To which he replied with a shrug before disappearing in a single bound. Curse you until your death. Mihawk wiped his nose as he wondered what suddenly gave him the chill. Someone must be thinking ill of him. You okay there? Arlong asked. I suppose, responded the swordsman. The journey back to Fishman Island was a lively one. Arlong and Mihawk were getting to know each other better, and what better way to do so than to beat each other up. Luffy had been chatting along with Aladdin, who were both very grateful for what Luffy was able to do for them. And in such a short amount of time, he managed to earn the respect of all people in the Fishman Kingdom. If you ever need us to do anything for you, just let us know, Jinbei stated, having a massive smile on his face. Thank you, Jinbei, Aladdin. I'll keep that in mind. Thus their journey ended when they finally arrived in Ryugu Kingdom, where King Neptune, Queen Otohime, Shanks, Fisher Tiger, and Whitebeard were enjoying a meal. Luffy and Jinbei joined the meeting at the invitation of King Neptune, and the rest of the group waited outside. Mugiwara greeted Whitebeard, who was in a very good mood. In the dining room, King Neptune sat at the helm, with Queen Otohime on his right, and Whitebeard on his left. Shanks sat beside Whitebeard and Fisher Tiger sat beside Queen Otohime. Whitebeard, replied Luffy, still confused at what Whitebeard was on about. So why is my presence requested? Asked Luffy. As soon as they arrived, a messenger intercepted them immediately. He was summoned by King Neptune for a very important request. Thank you for joining us, Mugiwara. I want to preface everything that will happen next by thanking you for everything you have done for my kingdom, my people, to our very own hero, Fisher Tiger. Luffy was then patted in the back by Fisher Tiger, who gave him a wide grin. The man lived because of him and he was very thankful for it. We asked for your presence because Whitebeard has a proposition. Began King Neptune, where he then handed the conversation to Whitebeard, who stood up from his seat. Mugiwara, before your arrival, I had requested for the assistance of the Fishman Kingdom to assist me in my conquest of the New World, and eventually in learning true history. I am the closest man to One Piece and yet I still don't have any of the road poneglyphs. My former crewmates back in my days as a member of the Rocks Pirates have obtained one each, and yet I'm supposed to be the closest. Luffy did not like where this was going and yet he let the man continue. I asked for your assistance, Mugiwara. You have shown me a great deal of your potential, and in time you could develop into one of my most powerful allies. So I ask for you to join me and be there when I discover the One Piece, and then crowned as the King of Pirates. No thanks. Everyone had a deadpan look, except for Queen Otohime, who was expecting his answer. You can't be the next King of Pirates because I will, proclaimed Luffy, to everyone's surprise. Then everyone looked at Whitebeard, who had his head down. His expression was hard to read. Was he mad? Was he sad? Or was he just not feeling anything? Then he immediately released a wave of his world-renowned haki before swinging his Basento at Luffstrafot, put his arms up to cover his face and covered his forearm in armament haki. The shockwave of the powerful swing and Luffy's defense caused fishmen and merfolk alike to pass out, even miles outside of the palace. Then the world's strongest man burst out laughing, a hearty laugh that confused the room. It was just a test from an old man. Alright brat, have it your way. I like your fire. Very well then, you are quite bold for your age, yet I understand your desires. Just know that in the open sea, where you find yourself getting in my way, we won't be on such friendly terms. Whitebeard then took his seat once more, retiring his Basento on his side. Got it. Luffy shook his arm, recovering from the impact. His forearm throbbed as it was extremely painful to receive a direct hit from the most powerful man in the world. So that was it? Asked Luffy, trying to remain cool despite internally freaking out. He was also a bit anxious to move on from Fishman Island. He was on a mission after all. Ah yes. Well, if you wish to join us for the rest of the meeting, you are more than welcome to do so, King Neptune replied, although still a bit shocked. I'm okay, King Neptune. Thank you. He then looked at Shanks, who seemed to be in awe at his boldness. When can we leave? Actually, that was another thing I wanted to talk to you about. Now that this is all out there, I can't take you to Whole Cake Island. I have some unfinished business I need to attend to. But Fisher Tiger has offered to take you there instead. What does Shanks need to do that is so important? I owe you more than my life, Mugiwara, so let me and the Sun Pirates take you to Whole Cake Island. We will even wait for a way for you to escape with whatever it is you need from there, stated Fisher Tiger, to which Whitebeard perked up. Linlin's territory, huh? Starting early, I see, Mugiwara. Whitebeard commented, reminiscing on his experience with his fellow emperor. She was, of course, the strongest woman in the entire world, and Whitebeard, along with Kaido, would be the only people that could stand on even grounds with her, for now. No, not yet. I won't go after the road poneglyph yet. And don't worry about my escape, Fisher Tiger. I have a way to get out of Toto Land. He then decided that it was time to move on. King Neptune, Queen Otohime. Thank you for your hospitality. Shanks and Whitebeard, I'll see you in the open seas. He then left the room, with Fisher Tiger and Jinbei following behind him after also saying their goodbyes. Interesting brat, said Whitebeard. If all things goes well, then Linlin would probably stunt the growth of the young Straw Hat Pirate. But it seems that Red-Haired was keen on seeing him succeed. Told you so, replied Shanks with a smile on his face. As Luffy walked away, he couldn't help but think of a certain man who used to be his captain. It was like Luffy carried his aura, the will of Gold D. Roger. It took some time to prepare the ships for a journey through the New World. The Sun Pirates worked tirelessly to ensure that they were more than prepared, especially to where they were going. Luffy currently sat on a ledge across the port, waiting, thinking to himself. What does Shanks want to do that he couldn't keep his words? I thought Whitebeard wanted to make a family. Did I seriously fuck up everything so bad that this had to happen? I need some answers, damn it. He scratched his head, deep in thoughts. He continued to shake his arms as the stinging pain continued to bother him. That damned Whitebeard can really pack a punch. But there was still the problem of this damned new timeline. Even with his recent acquisition of some powerful allies, he still needed more. He still had to do something before he really needed to make his moves. How long did he need exactly? His most powerful crew member in his original timeline was Zoro. At this moment he was a little squirt, probably still training to master his three-sword style. Then there was Sanji, who was being tortured by his family. Fuck, how did he know this? Sanji never told him. But if he makes a move for Sanji, then Sanji won't be able to grow as a person like he previously did. Nami is going to grow up with a mother since Arlong never becomes a tyrant. Usopp is still lying his way through Syrup Island. He needs to get in contact with Kuro before he docks in Syrup Village. Maybe he can save Chopper. But if he does, then he never grows to love helping people and instead grows to resent them. Frankie would witness the death of his teacher, Tom, and grow to become a criminal leader that mostly causes nuisance in Water 7. Robin. Well, Robin is on the run. With a bounty of 80 million berry, he will definitely look for her. Then there was Brook, still floating aimlessly in the Florian Triangle. Moria will get a piece of his mind soon, but he needed to get to Brook also. Otherwise everyone needed to live their life as they were. Despite the loss and suffering that they will endure, it is necessary for their growth. Tough pill to swallow, but it was the right thing to do. Right? Captain, the Sun Pirates are ready for departure. Mihawk approached him, allowing him to snap out of his thoughts. Finally it was time to set sail, but first he needed to make sure his friends were going to be taken care of. Queen Otohime dismissed herself from the meeting and joined the group. She decided to bid Luffy farewell for his journey. Be careful out there, Mugiwara-san, though I suppose you will be able to take care of yourself. She really was a genuinely kind person. He could just feel it in the way she spoke and the way she carried herself. If you ever need our help for anything, here. The queen handed him a small yet elongated messenger snail with a golden color. This communication device allows you access to all of our messenger system within the Fishman Kingdom. All you have to do is say call in the person's name. She eagerly awaited him to try out the device. Go on then. Okay, call Fisher Tiger. The snail began to vibrate, then within seconds, Fisher Tiger was being called by his crew members for a call. What do you mean? Fisher Tiger could be heard yelling aboard the pirate ship. Anyone who knows my personal messenger snail is aboard this ship. It's ringing, Captain, replied Jinbei. They were probably across from each other on the ship, thus all the yelling. Luffy and Queen Otohime looked at each other, snickering. Then Fisher Tiger picked up the call. Hello, who is this? But Luffy hung up the call. What the hell? Who called me just now? Damn kids! Screamed Fisher Tiger aboard the ship, causing both Luffy and the Queen to share a hearty laugh. Well, be on your way then, Mugiwara-san. We are truly grateful for everything you have done for us. This will go a long way in my mission to bring Fishman Island to the surface and finally join the world. Thank you, Queen Otohime. Luffy began, and then he had an idea. Actually, there is something I will need from you. He began, to which the Queen actively listened to his request. My friend, Brook, is currently stuck in the Florian Triangle. Please bring him to Sabaody, there have him find a woman by the name of Shaki and he should be okay from there. Then he continued with a second request. The second thing is a girl named Nico Robin. She is currently a fugitive with a bounty of 80 million berry. If any of your contacts manages to find her, please let me know. After all you have done for us, I will get someone on this as soon as I can. With a final wave, Luffy joined the members aboard the pirate ship. Their stopover at Fishman Island finally reached its momentary conclusion. Luffy, you mentioned how you have a way out of Toto Land. How do you plan on doing it? Fisher Tiger had joined Luffy in the dining quarter. Every member of the Sun Pirates were filtering in and out, taking turns eating the usual grub that the ship's chef would muster. You know, I'm supposedly very mysterious. Luffy then smirked. I'd like to keep it that way. Meanwhile, Arlong was laughing at something Jinbei said, and Mihawk had a smirk while twirling around his wine glass. Aladdin then punched Jinbei in the chest, causing a brawl to occur. Despite punching each other, everyone just laughed it off and went about their day. Luffy admired Fisher Tiger's crew. He wondered if he would ever get back to how it used to be. The Straw Hat Pirates, no. He needs to dream bigger, Straw Hat Grand Armada. Yes, that's it. Marine HQ, Marineford. I have summoned you here today because of some news. Take it as you like. The man sitting at the head of the office was very muscular with a wide chest. His spiky white hair gave off his mighty presence. He is the current fleet admiral of the entire marine forces. His name is Kong. In front of him was a tall, fair-skinned muscular man with braided black goatee. His presence matched that of even the highest-ranking military officer of the marine forces. He was known as the Golden Buddha. "Please continue, Fleet Admiral Kong," began the man, as he crossed his legs and folded his arms. Now, Admiral Sengoku, none of that formalities, it is just us," replied the Fleet Admiral, who removed his coat. "This conversation is confidential to the highest of magnitude." "Understood. I will be moving up to a non-combatant role in the coming year, and I wish to recommend you to the Gorosei as my successor." Kong then got up and looked outside his window, overlooking the entire Marine HQ. "But Sengoku tried to protest with the decision, although Kong wouldn't have any of it. "That's final, Sengoku, there is no better man for the job than you." "What about Garp?" argued Sengoku, as his friend would be the perfect choice to take such a high-ranking role. "Garp is simply not responsible enough for the job. You on the other hand have enough accolades under your belt and quite frankly, the balls to do what others cannot." Kong slammed his hands against the table. "You're my choice and that is finally." "Yes, sir," replied Sengoku, although he still felt like it should go to someone else. Garp was the man who disbanded the Rocks Pirates, took in Gold D. Roger. He was the hero of the Marines and Sengoku had always looked up to him despite the man insisting that they are equal. Though the man refused to attain the ranking of Admiral, content in remaining a Vice Admiral. "Good on you, Sengoku. Now who might be some prime candidates to take your place as an Admiral?" The Fleet Admiral proceeded to take his seat. "3 prime candidates in my mind. 4 if he was counting Garp. But the man simply refused to be directly under the Gorosei." "Go on then, I'm listening." Kong took out a cigar and began to take puffs of it. "Vice Admiral Kuzan, Vice Admiral Borsellino, and from the reserve, Isho." Then he began to list their qualities in order to bolster their case to be the next Marine Admiral. Admiral Z and Admiral Akainu are both very high on Kuzan. They think he has the making of the next GR Logia. Devil Fruit is also one of the most powerful abilities known to us. Then there's Isho from the reserve. He is a very powerful asset who has yet to be mobilized. We have been keeping him on the shelf so that our enemies do not discover his existence, for he can change the tide of the battle in an instant. Finally, there is Borsellino, who is very passive about most things, but his light devil fruit is considered to be the deadliest in our ranking. Although he never really put much effort into anything he does. I heard he got beaten by some Straw Hat brat. Did red-haired Shanks really put a number on him? Asked the Fleet Admiral. No sir, it was a new pirate, not known by any of our sources. From Borsellino's report, this man couldn't be older than 20 years old, maybe younger. He was a master of armament, observation, and even conqueror's hockey. He brings with him a crew of currently Arlong the Saw, and Dracule Mihawk. A headache, but shouldn't be an issue. Borsellino said that he underestimated them and got his ass handed to him. Interesting choices. I wonder who this new person is. Let Spandine know that I need this kid to be taken care of right away. In the matter of your successor, we will bring it to the attention of Z and Akainu. He then stood up and indicated that the meeting was over. You're dismissed, Admiral Sengoku. Yes sir. The Admiral made his exit, doing as the Fleet Admiral instructed. First to tell Spandine of his new mission, marked urgent, and then to let his colleague know of the new changes in their rank. Florian Triangle, yo-ho-ho-ho, a record for yourself. Well done, well done. A tall skeletal man began to play a game known as, How Far Can He Hit a Rock with a Plank? Almost 40 years of mindlessly floating about the endless foggy sea has caused the former vice captain of the Rumbar pirate to do anything and everything to keep himself entertained. For he was the man who ate the soul fruit, and therefore as he died, his soul simply returned to his rotting corpse. Thus he was now a skeleton man, living an empty life of loneliness. As the skeleton man looked around him, emptiness, with his only company being the fog which covered everything. Fog, fog, always just fog, he yelled out before cutting a horizontal line across the thick fog. He managed to split the air, but it just returned to how it was before. Gah! He burst out, once more falling into despair. His situation was hopeless. He was hopeless. As he closed his eyes thinking one day he could be saved, a vision of a man with a straw hat passed through his mind, then emptiness. That was new. But he took no heed to the vision as he just wanted to dream again, to be back to how it used to be. Brook fell asleep, once again drifting into his usual dream of his crew happily singing and laughing. With that, a single tear fell from his empty eye socket. How it used to be. Nanohana, Alabasta, her jet black hair shined against the sun, as the young woman clinged to the wall behind her. She was gasping heavily as her pursuer was finally hot on her tail. Time is a fickle. Events happen in chronological order due to events lining up as they were intended. But once a time traveler interferes with the timeline, things will change from how it was before. A primary example was Nico Robin, who was supposed to be traveling the West Blue along with the organization she joined in the year 1514. Although things change, for the intrusion of one, Straw Hat Luffy, created a shift in events where Robin's group were supposed to be diverted by Dracula Mihawk. The original path was somewhere in the Grand Line, but with the present such a powerful warlord they had to shift course to the West Blue. But that couldn't happen and Robin ended up continuing and meeting a terrible storm which separated her from her group. Now she was in a kingdom known as Alabasta where her past has finally caught up with her. Her name was Nico Robin, then the demon child of Ohara, and today might be her last, as the men of Spandine was finally closing in on her. What did I ever do to deserve this? My home, my family. She kept asking this to herself for years, ever since she began her run from the law. For over a decade she had been on the run and now Spandine, CP9 leader and the orchestrator of annihilating her people, had finally found her. Look there men, she must be here somewhere, exclaimed Spandine. He was confidently smirking to himself, finally catching his most evasive fugitive yet. Come out wherever you are demon. She panted heavily as the sound of soldiers' footsteps became closer and closer. Then nothing, her ears perked up, trying to listen in on their conversation, but she could not hear anything. It was so frustrating, if only she could hear them somehow. 1 second she couldn't hear them and the next she could hear them clear as day. She took in the opportunity to listen in on the conversation of the Marines. Damn it! I am so close to cracking this case. Don't take this away from me, screamed Spandine, to which case the transponder snail replied something and Spandine toned down in his response. No sir. I understand sir, yes sir. Right away. He hung up the snail and grabbed the first thing he could find and tossed it against the wall. The gun he picked up collapsed against the wall. Metallic pieces flew all over the place. Men, head back, we've been reassigned to a mug. Something stupid about a straw hat. He then grabbed one of his finest soldiers and pulled him on the side. Listen here Lucci. You find this bastard and you kill him before we make it halfway through the Grand Line. As soon as the hit is over on this straw hat bastard, we can head back here and hunt the demon brat. Yes sir. The man known as Rob Lucci answered, adjusting his top hat. He then disappeared in a blur. The man was the best in CP9, and in terms of search and destroy, it was his favorite mission. Nico Robin collapsed on the floor, finally sighing in relief for even a moment. She was finally free, for now. As she was about to get up a man hovered over her. He wore a thick overcoat for the desert weather, a cigar in his mouth and a golden hook on his left hand. Say, you wouldn't happen to know how to read poneglyph would you? Several days later Sun Pirates, Landho Captain, screamed Aladdin. Mugiwara, this is Toto Land. Are you sure you don't wish for us to wait for your escape? Fisher Tiger asked. Aye, we'll be alright. Luffy jumped aboard a small dingy. Arlong and Mihawk were already aboard, comfortably positioning themselves to the best that they can. Safe travels Mugiwara. Goodbye Fisher Tiger. The two men waved at each other and off they went. The Straw Hat Grand Armada could only grow from there, or they would die trying.